Rescue funds.
What do these do? What do these do? Don't say yes.
End of the month.
Okay, end of
This-
September.
End of September.
I got time before I
Not
start getting
December,
harassed. It's
end of September.
I don't know what you're insinuating.
The council meeting?
Oh, yeah, after the council.
Border Patrol?
We already did it.
Already did. It's 6:55.
I got here at 6:48. It's 6:58 right now.
We were quick.
Didn't they teach you to?
It went real smooth without you.
Get on here.
Look,
I swear, you don't know how to tell time.
But, you know, it is the only one.
6:20. What country are we in?
Right there. New York, 6:59. Right now. And I've been here for 5 minutes. We're pretty safe, 5 minutes.
You were
no,
late.
you haven't. Well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That clock is kind of fast.
Fast.
It's a minute, it's a minute fast.
Look, it's 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock right now. 7 o'clock. Yeah. I've been here for 5
Send
minutes.
that back to Disney World where you got it. Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order of September the 5th. We have a special council meeting to start off before we get into committees. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Mr. Amrhein.
He has to be excused.
Move to excuse.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. DeLeone.
Here.
Mr. Ferrara.
Here.
Mr. Kuhar.
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Here.
Ms. Shaffer.
Here.
Mr. Sidoti.
Here.
Mr. Turner.
Here.
And Ms. Wallach.
Here.
Okay, I need a motion to authorize the draft.
Move to authorize draft number 2018-102.
Second. Second, any discussion? Hearing none. Will the clerk please read the roll for suspension?
I got to read it in first before
All in
suspension.
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Draft number 2018-102, a resolution adopting the apportionment of undivided local government fund of county under an alternative method or on a formula basis and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension?
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Move adoption?
Second.
Any discussion on this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for.
Mr. Farrar.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Turner.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
And Mr. DeLeone.
Yes.
Resolution number 2018-102 passes.
Okay, that's all the business we had, so the special committee, what,
I want to make a motion.
No, that's it.
Oh, okay, forget it.
you want to wait till after we adjourn?
Okay, sorry.
We're adjourned out of the special council meeting. Tracy?
Okay. I would like to move that since Mr. Coffey did such a wonderful job in the apportionments in the county, that he go first today.
Second.
Wow.
Well, in favor.
All, that's your motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Boy, this is a,
Better
better
call-
write this on your calendar, Dave
Better
Coffey.
call your wife and tell her you're coming home early.
No, he's got to get his 3 hours comp time. He's not going home early. Wow.
I appreciate the gesture. Thank you so much. I would like to request committee authorization this evening for the appropriation amendments as I've outlined in my August 29th memo to the city manager, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about that. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Seeing none. Anyone from the audience? Back to council.
Move to
Approve.
Second?
With emergency?
Don't need.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Dave.
Okay.
Look at that.
Have a
All right.
nice night.
While we're on the move, we're going to move community development up for discussion. Mr. Kuhar.
Okay. We're going to review the activities of the Kent Convention Visitors Bureau. Tom?
Yeah, we haven't really had an opportunity since we sort of created our own. We used to be the Brimfield Kent Visitors Bureau, and we sort of outgrew that, I think, as a result of that, we created our own. We really haven't had them in, although you'll recognize the faces because they're the same faces that do so much of the work downtown and the events, including Tom. Tom's part of the board of the group. But I had an opportunity earlier this year just to kind of get a rundown of all the work they're doing. And so much of it's behind the scenes, but it's really important stuff that I thought, hey, if you guys don't mind, we'd love to have you come in and just kind of update council on what you do. Now, they're paid through the hotel tax, so they get a percentage of the hotel tax. And of course, now that we have a hotel in town, there actually is some money there. So they've been using it judiciously, but very much trying to market Kent, maybe a little bit bigger than just the Akron region, but even as far up as Cleveland. So it's a little bit broader focus. Main Street advertises and the Chamber advertises, but these guys are sort of even an umbrella on top of all that. So I'll stop and just let Tom introduce everybody, and then I think they just want to give you a brief rundown of what they've been working on.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening.
Evening.
It was back in early 2016 that you agreed with administration it'd be a good idea to open up a Convention and Visitors Bureau for the city of Kent. It was named Destination Kent Convention and Visitor Bureau. And it was in May that it was incorporated and actually started operating and being funded by the lodging tax that's in here in the city limits of Kent. Not only Kent State Hotel and Conference Center, but also the University Inn contributes a small amount to it. And the board of directors is comprised of a representative of Main Street Kent, Heather Malarchik, representative of the Kent Area Chamber of Commerce, Ori Lemhoff, representative of Burbick Companies, which is Michelle Hartman, a representative of College Town Kent, which is now Tim Dean, representative of Kent State University, which is open at the moment, and a representative of the city, which is myself, and I feel like, and a representative of the hotel itself, Kent State University Hotel and Conference Center, which is Mary Klein. And tonight we have as our guest Heather Malarchik and Michelle Hartman, as well as Leslie Sickle, to update you on what the Bureau has been doing over the last almost 2 years now. Heather, Michelle?
Good evening.
Evening.
Dave and Tom pretty much covered it, so I think we could just sit down. Just kidding. Now, we want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present tonight. We're very excited about the CVB. As Dave and Tom referenced, we got started about 2 years ago in the spring of 2016. We did partner for almost 16 years at that point with Brimfield. And obviously, that we've changed a lot. When that organization started in 2000, we were very different, obviously, in Kent. So we just felt that it was time to take the opportunity to start marketing Kent as the destination that we all believe that it has become. So we started our own CVB. Tom already mentioned who makes up our board. We also have a marketing committee. And most of the people that make up our board sit on the marketing committee. But we also have Leslie Sickle with Main Street Kent, and Tom Simpson of the Kent Stage. Leslie also serves as our marketing coordinator. We felt it was important to have somebody to kind of oversee our marketing committee, and she is instrumental. She's kind of our creative brain, so she does a lot of our ad layout and things for us, so we're real excited to have her as part of that. We meet once a month. We meet at the Destination Kent Visitor Center, which is on Erie Street across from the hotel. And again, as Dave and Tom had mentioned, the CVB is funded through bed tax dollars. So we collect 6% through the hotel, where a majority of the money obviously comes from the downtown hotel, and a small portion of it comes from the University Inn. So that amounts to about $40,000 to $45,000 a year. in an annual operating budget. So that's what we have to work with. So obviously, being mindful of having a limited budget, we want to get as much bang for our buck because most of our budget obviously goes towards our marketing efforts. So what do we do? What do we spend our money on? One of the things we've done for the past couple of years is we've done radio advertising around the holidays to promote Kent for holiday shopping and holiday lights. We also joined the American Bus Association, the ABA, and that was really through the encouragement of our hotel because they felt that we would be a great stop for a bus tour. And basically what that means is it's truly a bus tour that makes a stop in a community. We had the opportunity to experience that firsthand when we, as in myself, Heather, and Leslie, did a field trip to Destination Cleveland about a year ago and kind of picked their brain and how they do things. And they had a bus tour come through, and it was a casino trip. And if I remember correctly, I think it was a 2-week trip. And one of their stops was Cleveland. And basically what they did, they came to the visitor center, and they were welcomed and given all kinds of fun things. And they stayed overnight in Cleveland. They did dinner, they hit the Jack Casino, they did the hotel, they did activities the next day, and off they went to their next destination. We're centrally located, so we thought this would be a great thing to do in Kent. We've got the Kent stage, we've got a lot of live music acts, events. We could be part of a bus tour. That's also opened up opportunity for us to do travel and tourism shows, and we've done 2 travel and tourism shows so far, and the hotel is a member of Destination Cleveland, and they just did a big food show and represented our hotel there. So in your handout, we just kind of wanted to share some of the things that we had at our shows. So these 2 things here that we gave you are 2 of the pieces that Leslie worked on that we actually handed out to visitors of the tourism show and to bus tour operators. And then another thing that we did, and this is just a copy, this is one of those very large banners that you open up. So our display table would feature this on one end, and then the Kent State Hotel would also have a banner on the other end, and we would hand out our material. But really the best thing about these shows is we can get in front of people. We can actually engage. We can talk to people, and we can talk to them about how great downtown Kent is, how great our city is, and they need to come see us. So that's been a great thing for us. We also actually launched something new with the Kent Stage this year, which dropped in February. It took us about 6 to 8 months to put this together, but we're really excited about it. Tom was in the process of updating his website, so we kind of stole an idea from Cleveland. I got on the Playhouse Theater website about a year ago to get tickets, and they have a little link on their website that says "Make a Night of It." So if you don't mind, I'm just going to have you hold that for a second. So we have a link now on the Kent Stage on their home page that says "Make a Night of It." And this will take them into the Kent State Hotel website, and if they're a patron of the stage, they'll get a reduced rate for staying overnight in Kent. Right below that link is our Destination Kent website. So they can link into that and obviously see all the great things that we have going on in Kent. We have a calendar of events that Leslie keeps updated for us. You know, pictures, all kinds of fun stuff. So obviously we are trying to encourage our online visitors now that are going through the Kent Stage, which I will mention, they have 20,000 email subscribers. So, I mean, it is really reaching a much broader audience by partnering with the Kent Stage and doing that. So we're real excited about that too. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything here. The other thing that we dropped this year, which Heather's going to talk about, is our very first ever Kent visitor guide. And it was a wonderful project to do. We're very excited about it. I'm going to pass the baton to Heather, and she's going to tell you a little bit about that and some other things that we're looking at doing and we're doing.
So you all have in your packets our new visitor's guide. This is literally the first one that just focuses on Kent, and it features all of the tourist attractions in Kent rather than every dentist and orthodontist and I don't know, groomer that you could possibly find in the city limits. It's really focused content-wise on what tourists are looking for. So we worked with Matt Keffer, who publishes Around Kent magazine, he's a fantastic photographer. He does excellent work. We thought what better person to partner with to create our own guide. So We targeted certain businesses to advertise in the guide and created our content based on what tourists want to know. So that includes things like, obviously, our hotel and our galleries and our food and shopping and just the public arts and all the other good things that people are interested to see when they get here. So these guides were printed at the end of May, so we've had them available.
So do you put them in here for free, or do they have to pay a fee to be in here?
The advertisements are paid for,
Well,
but
the
any listings, no, that's just, we picked the categories that we, without including absolutely every single place you could get food, what would be interesting to somebody that's new to the area. So no, not listings, but ads, yes. So anyway, the guides were printed at the end of May, and we've had them to distribute at some of the events that bring people in from outside of state, so we could really entice them to come back. These are distributed at the Destination Cleveland Visitor Center. We have them at, Kent State puts them in their orientation packets, and then we have them at Turnpike locations, Ohio State Fairs. And now that we've got that under our belts, we're working with a company called CTM Media. They're out of Talmadge. And their job is to get this information into the hands of people looking for their next adventure. So basically, they will stock the brochure racks at hotels and destination places, and you pay for like an annual contract with them. So we're working with them on that. But somebody at the Cleveland Aquarium or the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame will be already out and about and be able to grab our information from there. And then they have a digital brochure rack, which is a screen version of that, and we'll have our information there, and people can scroll through and see Kent and say, send me that information, and have it just texted or emailed to them, the information about Kent. So that will be in some of the Cleveland hotels and some of the other attractions like the Great Lakes Science Center, the Natural History Museum, and stuff like that. We also recently placed an ad in the Akron Civic Theater program, so for 50,000 copies, we'll get to make 3 changes throughout the year with the content, so we can feature different events and holiday lights and things like that to that audience as well. So we have a half page going into that. So we're constantly looking for things that'll fit into that budget, that will reach people that will be just a car drive away and willing to spend a day, a night, a whole weekend in Kent, and so we can keep the heads in the beds and people shopping in Kent.
So you'll publish this once a year, is that it?
Actually, we already need to do more. So since we've been talking to CTM, they'll need a quantity of at least 5,000 to, they put them in all these places, and then on a monthly basis or weekly basis, depending on the location, check the inventory and provide a report back to us so we know where they're getting taken from. So we already are going to print another 5,000 copies.
So I guess, do you print a different one every year?
Yes, so we made this one in 2018-19, just to kind of cover ourselves, because we didn't know how long they last.
Heidi had a question.
Yeah, I hope that the distribution includes rest stops, because I tend to
Yes,
collect
that's
stuff
actually
at rest
already
stops.
happening.
Yeah, that's great.
Rest stops is on the list.
It's called the Ohio Travel Pavilion, and they cover the rest stops, the turnpike stops, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I happened to see the Around Town Music Festival commercial several times. Was that both organizations? I know
Crooked
that's
River,
Main Street.
it's Crooked River Arts Council.
Crooked River,
Yeah.
but they mentioned Main Street.
Right, we partner with them on that
Yeah,
to help
that's
promote it, so,
awesome.
yeah. And that's really the idea, is we have all these
Yeah.
things that we're doing, and then if we can reach a little bit farther out and get people to come from farther away for the events we're already doing, then it's kind of an added
Excellent.
bonus. It's excellent. Michelle, did you want to wrap up?
Wrap it up. So obviously, we're very fortunate. We feel very fortunate that we have a lot of great downtown organizations that share our passion and want to promote Kent as a destination. And as Heather has mentioned and Dave mentioned in the beginning, if Main Street or the Chamber or Crooked River or somebody's doing an event and they have this target market, we can add additional dollars to that pool, and we can actually broaden that reach. And I know several of us do this, and we're at the events, working the events. We people watch, and we want to see how many people did you know at the event. And it's fun and exciting, and I'm happy to share that. we're starting to not know as many people at these events. And that's great, because that means that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. It's working. Our job is, we're doing our job. It's working because we're not just here anymore. We're starting to reach that broader market. So that's very exciting. We have a great space in the Visitor Center. When we designed it with growth in mind. The brochure lobby is open 7 days a week. People can come in at their convenience, pick up brochures, not just on Kent, but on surrounding areas. We have an office in there with, as soon as funding will allow, that hopefully we can put a warm body in there to help us grow this organization. We also plan on working a little bit more with Destination KSU. We've kind of dabbled that just a little bit, but we want to enhance that partnership. And we also want to work with the city. We want to try to get a presence for some bed and breakfasts or some Airbnbs or something like that in Kent. We have a great downtown hotel, but if we can offer more options to people, we will be more attractive to people. So that's an opportunity that we think we definitely don't want to miss. So we obviously have a lot of opportunity, and we think we're on the right track. This is a volunteer effort by all of us, and it's a volunteer effort that we are happy to take on, because we truly love the people, we truly love the sights, the sounds, the local flavor of Kent, and we want to make that connection because we believe that others will love it too. So we feel like it's our job to make that connection, to keep those day trippers coming back for more, and hopefully they'll make a night of it, or maybe a weekend. So we thank you for giving us this opportunity. Any questions, of course, or if there's any time anybody wants to reach out to any of us, we're always happy.
Yeah, I have another question.
Sure.
Have you guys considered putting a sign out by the freeway, like a Destination Kent or Historic Downtown Kent? Because that works for me when I'm traveling. If I go by a sign a few times, in my travels, I get curious, and sometime I'm gonna end up going.
No, that's a great idea, and I don't know if that's maybe something we can work with the city on. I'm not sure, but no, we can absolutely look into doing something like that. Yeah.
Thanks. I really appreciate what you're doing.
Anybody else on council have any questions? Anybody from the audience? Thank you very much.
Nice
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
What you do. I guess that's all I got.
All right, now we're going to go to the committee of the whole. First thing is approval of the title of the 6th policy. Dave?
Yeah, Hope's been working on this, trying to put this together. She drew the short straw. No,
9, I'm sorry.
she's good at it, is what it is. And now she may be wishing she wasn't so good at writing policy, because she's writing a lot of policies. Really what she's sort of doing for us is, well, not sort of, flat out making sure we're compliant with all the laws. And as recipients of funding, that's increasingly important as the grant agencies are asking more and more, let me see your policies and make sure we're giving money to people that are compliant. So to that end, that's what she's done. She's sort of taken the different departments and talked about how individual departments are handling it and sort of bundled it all into a package for a citywide policy. We didn't necessarily intend to spend a lot of time on it. She can give you a little brief overview if you don't know what Title VI is all about, but this really is just sort of a procedural thing for us, and it sort of affirms what we've been doing now in a written form.
Yep. And this actually got to my desk through Jim. What's your last name? Bowling. Actually, all cities and public agencies, political subdivisions who have accepted any federal monies, whether it's for transportation, aviation, the port authorities, HUD, have been required to have a Title VI policy in place. It's only been recently that Jim indicated that ODOT, as a subrecipient of federal funds, and also they're the ones that funnel the federal funds to the cities, is now requiring, they want to see our policy. So that's kind of how this bubbled up as well. So I asked all the departments who receive federal grants, and of course police and fire will get them, but mostly it's in engineering and it is in Bridget's department under HUD and things like that. What is before you is basically it's bare bones really, because for instance, in Bridget's department, she also has a Title VI policy that might dig down deeper and get in more in the weeds of what HUD might require. This general policy will cover every city department, and then if any department needs something more specific to them, we'll work on those departments. The Title VI is actually part of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The main focus of our policy is to put in place a complaint procedure for individuals who feel that they have been discriminated because of their race, their sex, their religion, sexual orientation, gender. Within these programs, they can come to the city and they can say, hey, I've got a complaint. In the policy, I have been chosen as the coordinator who would initially take those complaints. In the packet, you'll see that there is a fairly lengthy complaint form that a person would need to fill out to get the complaint started. And there's also a form that I will need to keep filled out and up to date regarding any complaints, lawsuits, things like that that has been filed against the city. Also in the policy, we covered limited English proficiency, which is identifying ways that we can help those in our community who are not proficient in English understand our written documents. We need to train our staff to be able to say, how can I help you with, what can I do here to help this person understand the information that they need to have and that we're required to give them. It also provides the policy requires us to make a very strong effort in getting minorities to be participants and members of all of our public bodies. And it's within the policy, I've set forth some of the suggestions that might help us get there. In the same token, we also need to make sure that the community in general remains educated, that we try to get their input into meetings and with regard to the programs that we have accepted federal money, and really that really goes for everything that we do here in the city. We need to keep, whether that's questionnaires that we send out, or putting pamphlets out at utility billing or in our parks, or just any way that we can make sure that citizens and residents and anyone who needs to be involved is involved. Training, outreach, the training is also required under this policy. Not only initial training, but as the coordinator, I will be required to provide ongoing training, especially in the departments like Bridget's and engineering, that are probably going to come into contact with more of the complaints, more of the individuals that might not be proficient in English, and probably are going to need more help in the outreach area. So that's basically what the policy covers.
Questions, Heidi?
Yeah. This may not be consistent with what Title VI requires, but I don't see gender orientation in here at all. And that's something that council's made clear that we want to start including as much as possible in our anti-discrimination policies. So is that something we can squeak in there somehow? Where? Gender identity under policies and regulations, but there's nothing under the complaints. That is good that we have that on page 1. Under section 2, it does say gender identity, but it's not mentioned, to my knowledge, anywhere else under the complaints.
Well, the complaints, and I understand what you're saying, we could possibly do a separate complaint form. This complaint form is really geared toward, it would be the first step in what the federal government requires. And right now, I don't believe the federal government recognizes gender identity for purposes of suing the city under the Civil Rights Act and through the EEOC and things like that. If we want to include something like that for just for the city's purpose, yes, I can do that.
Yeah.
I can do that.
I don't want to speak for all of council, but I think we have spoken on that, at least for anti-discrimination in housing and employment and all that. So that would be probably a good idea to include it somehow, some way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Robin?
Yeah, how's that working for us? I mean, how do we people these committees, and do we know how many minorities that we are listing right now from what you're saying the government wants to see us doing and so on and so forth? How many, say, well, used to be women, how many other minorities are peopling these committees?
On Appendix D, which is the last page, I've listed all of the boards and the number of members, and unfortunately, there are no minority members on any of our boards and commissions. Now, I know I did have a conversation with Bridget one time who was really pushing for a minority applicant on one of our boards, and unfortunately, the person didn't want to sit on that board, but we do need to make better efforts in that regard.
So we understand that we need to do
Yes.
more to do that.
Yes, we do, yes.
I appreciate that. And at the end of the day, after we're able to what is our expectation? First off, I mean, I know that from the standpoint that we have this Title VI, there's some actual things that make sure that there are things we can't do to people who are, you know, in the city of Kent, that we're actually trying to make sure that we, as a city, are meeting probably the greater burden, which is participation and how we can get the kind of diversity in thought and experience that we need to do. So I now that we have something and you're going through this, my expectation is we'll probably see us doing better the next time.
Yes.
No guarantees, but through that effort that might, you know, assist us in getting greater participation, contract awards, which
Right.
I'm sure already that we are not in any way. I know Kent. I know the leadership of Kent. And I know there's not any intent to discriminate. But the bottom line is we're still not getting it done.
Right.
And what we need to do is put a greater focus on that from the stand. I would say the same thing if it was we didn't have leadership with women, that we need to do better. We need to do better in a lot of areas, and this community has to know that we're really trying to do better, and that it's important that they then want to be more involved in what we're trying to get done. So.
And I agree. I think that the city of Kent has not discriminated against anyone regarding any of the money that we've gotten from the federal government. But I agree that you're right. If we take the time to do more education, to train our staffs better, we've done better than we are right now. And so every step forward is a step forward. That's profound. Isn't it?
Well, it was stated very well.
You done, Robin?
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else before Heidi? All right, second time around, Heidi.
Second time around. Yeah, just, piggybacking on what Robin had to say, if they would have filled in council, we would have had one, Robin. But maybe what we should do is when we do our advertising for boards and commissions, that we do establish some kind of an extra bit of outreach. Maybe, I'm not sure if council would have to vote on, that form, but I guess it would depend on what the staff thinks, but maybe we ought to have sort of a, like we preference minority businesses and, have some other preferences. We might want to also establish that. It's like an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to actual outreach in the form of going to churches and other places that, we might encounter more minority folks. Okay.
Roger.
Well, not to circle back, but I'm going to. This council spent 2 years on discussing and considering trying to umbrella a number of initiatives to increase civic engagement. One of the problems I think we have is that we know that we need to somehow get people interested in being engaged in their government, in being interested in being engaged in the process of local decision-making, being interested. As you recall, we decided to sign on as a compassionate community. One of the goals of the compassionate community is to open those doors for everyone. And when we say everyone, we meant everyone. I think this council took a firm stand just in our passing of legislation to make sure that no one is discriminated against in this city. I think that's significant, but that's just one step. At some point, we need to have the opportunity to either, and I hate focus groups, I hate those terms, but somehow we need to organize our work under one Kent so that we can begin to get into the neighborhoods and ask the people. Because that's how you get civic engagement, is that you actually give them, they feel they have a stake in the decision-making by being able to talk about why Kent's important to them. What is it that they love about this community? What is it about this community they feel that we're not quite meeting the mark? We need to hear from them. And that's how we can begin to develop people's interest in being part of these boards. And that includes everyone, not just us big guys have a lot to say, but it means that that person who is in a category of a minority says, hey, I really do count for something. My voice is heard, and maybe I can take that first step and be on one of the boards, and maybe I can take the time. They need to see value, I guess, is my perspective on this. And in fighting this battle for years in the public schools and trying to recruit and going out and trying to find minority candidates, and by the way, minority candidates isn't just racial, it's ethnic, it has to do with even religion. I mean, to get a Muslim teacher into our schools so people would understand what Islam really was about, and they realize that we're all people, It is hard to do that unless they want to be here. In other words, they say, wow, we really want to be part of this. So, I know, I'll get off my soapbox, but I really think it's time that we make a firm commitment of trying to get out into the community in an organized fashion and see if we can find out what is it that people really like and what is it that we can do to make it a place where they feel that they have a stake. I'm done.
John?
I'm trying to figure out how to put this. Can we really be a city of equality if we keep pointing out different minorities as separatists. It seems like we're conflicting, we're saying, you're different, we want you to be part of us, everybody's equal. It just in my head, it scrambles like that, and I don't know if that's a good, bad thing.
Is that a question?
That was the question, it says, can we? That was a question.
Thank you, John. I was trying to sort it out. Somebody down here have an answer for you?
It's what the law requires. I mean, it's at some point in this country's history, we decided that we weren't treating minorities and different races and different ethnic and religious groups and gender groups and sexes the same as we were white males. So they had to mandate this, and so we're going to live by it until we don't need it anymore.
Robin?
Yeah, what John was saying, it's kind of half empty or half full. The reality is that society has determined that for us. I don't want to go out necessarily and walk in a store and have somebody follow me because I'm black. I didn't choose that situation. It is what it is because from a societal standpoint, we have been distinguished. This country was built on that. Now what we need to do is build on being distinct as individuals, but not punished for it. So that's why it's important that we identify these things and understand what we need to do to lift the community up. And, just from my viewpoint, us having this discussion right now moves us ahead, not back. You may see that a little different, and I think you do on some level, but I know your heart and I know what you mean by it. We are close, and I wouldn't have expected that because we're very far different on the way we view societal issues. But the bottom line is we right now as a entity have to want to energize that discussion and start working toward a way to not point out differences as a negative, but as a positive. And I think we have that capability, and dealing with distinctions is a good thing, and not a bad one.
Somebody else, Roger? Heidi, did you have your hand up?
I did, but I'm going to wait.
Roger, go.
Where was the question?
I just want to say that both John and Robin are making the same point in different ways. But what Ms. Jones is talking about is that we have a legal obligation as a city. We have legalities that we have to follow, and that's what she's helping us do. And I thank you that we're moving forward on that. But the other part of that is that soft stuff. It's that interpersonal relationships that we all have. It's the relationship we have with our greater community. It's our greater community's engagement in their community, their buying into their community. The easy part, believe it or not, is to make sure that all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted. And that's what our law director is doing. The hard part is trying to figure out how to find our voices as a community. And, John, I knew exactly what you were talking about, and I knew where your heart was. And Robin hit the nail right on the head. The hard part is getting the voices where we actually talk with one another and talk about what is really going on in the social fabric of Kent. How do we get people engaged, and a lot of it's asking questions, just developing relationships with people, being out and about with people. And we all can't do that, and we all can do that. I mean, that's complex. It's not easy because we're all standoffish with one another, especially if we have not actually opened our hearts to understanding other people's points of view. Not agreeing with points of view, but understanding points of view, and beginning to develop an understanding of where we're coming from, because Robin hit the nail on the head. His perspective is going to be different than my perspective because our experiences, He's a black man, I'm a white man, are we the same age, Rob? You're a lot younger.
I hope not.
Yeah. But the point is he's gonna look through it, it's just a normal thing, it's what society has done. If we look at, both of us, just knowing Robin's heart, we both come though to a different nexus in ways. We work to understand other people's points of view, and I think everyone tries to do that to an extent. So I think there's two parts here, and I think what we're actually talking about tonight is we're going to get the legal part done. Now we still have to challenge ourselves. How do we get the other part done? How do we actually give life and breath and action to the legal norms that have been established? And to me, that's a lot of work. And I still think One Kent and those type of ideas, appreciative inquiry, getting into the community, doing that, would give us a step up on every community in the area, in my opinion. But that's just me.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I'm the only one that had a question.
Yeah.
Good points.
I
Across
was
the board,
answering
good
his
points.
question. I was answering John's
Yeah,
question.
good points across the board. Is there anybody else before I go to the audience? Anybody in the audience have anything they want to say on this subject? Well, come to the mic, give your name and address, and we appreciate your remarks.
Yes,
We're in it together, buddy.
that's right.
My name is Chris Todd. I'm a Kent graduate and a business owner here. And I would say,
Address also.
oh, my address is a business address, if that's okay.
That's fine.
1108 South Water Street in Kent, on the corner of South Water and East School. I would say I've been in here, this town, since I was a freshman in college, which was in 1985. And I would say the best thing to do, and what is happening in our community, is if you go downtown, you see how many different restaurants there are. All the different ethnicities of restaurants, because restaurants and food are one of the #1 ways that we can learn from each other's culture. Because if I invite you into my restaurant and it's a food you've never had before and you like it, it might spur you on to see what else is going on with this Taiwanese food or the Japanese food or whatever food you try. And that brings us all together. But one thing I want to say about what Roger and Robin and John were saying is the day that we all decide that the lack of pigmentation in each one of our skins is not the biggest deal in the world, is when we will all truly get along, and we will not care about if one culture is marrying another culture, but we can all just become one, because that's where we're headed, whether we like that. Some people like that or not, but we've already done it through music, we're doing it through food, but really the history of our country and everywhere, the fact that we put such a big deal on the color of someone's skin is a waste of time. It's who you are in here, and that is just what I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Good point. Anybody else from the audience? Go back to council. What's the direction of council?
Move to,
Oh, go ahead.
move to approve the Title VI.
Okay. I would like to propose an amendment. Oh,
It has to
go
be
ahead.
sent.
You want to amend his,
Yeah.
all right, to what?
The amendment is that to add an action item. And that action item would be to, would this be okay with the, just make sure, you know, it's okay with the feds and all that. But the action item is to actively promote minority candidates to boards and commissions, so that we're not just talking about it, but we're going to, you know, in my mind, it's important to actually make a council voice, you know, voice vote, meaning that this is what we want.
Is there a second to the amendment?
Second, sure.
Tracy, you second it?
Yeah.
Heidi, I'd go back, but you already gave out your reason.
No, I
Tracy,
didn't.
do you
I
have-
didn't give my whole reason. I'm going to give back. I don't want to say
I
something
have
else.
a
All right, Heidi. Let's go to Heidi, she made the motion.
I just
you
want to
said-
say something to the audience. They're not looking at what I'm looking at.
You're talking about your amendment.
I'm talking about my amendment. I'm looking at this, Appendix D. There's a whole column of number of members on each of our boards and commissions. Actually, council was not added, but I put it in. 92 individuals. Of those 92 individuals, we have one minority. And I look at this, I'm pretty upset about that. I think we need to do something, a very conscious, deliberate action. And that's why I propose this amendment.
Tracy?
First of all, I have a question about it. Is that okay to do? I mean,
Is what okay?
actively encourage
Oh,
minorities?
absolutely.
Okay.
That is what part of this.
Point of order.
Oops. So then I agree, we should actively recruit minorities then.
Any more discussion on the amendment?
I was just going to ask if it,
You have your hand up?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask our law department if it made more sense to put this amendment in this motion, or to do a second resolution that we would put some action items together to actively recruit.
Point of,
Is she-
I can answer that.
Can't answer that question.
Okay. I'll read your mind.
All right, you got to talk on the amendment, the motion. Robin, is that your intent to?
Yeah, my question is the mandate. How do you get, it seems like to me, you may be getting in your own way, to start mandating well, I like the part about trying to do that actively. My question is that by mandating it, well, that's just a word. Am I missing that though? I thought you were, okay, then.
Yeah, can I speak?
No, I'm next.
You're supposed to be speaking on the amendment to the motion.
Right, I just want to clarification. It's not a mandate, I just said that the motion is to actively promote minority candidates for the boards and commissions. That's not a mandate, I didn't say we need to have X number, that's all.
John, on the amendment.
On the amendment, I'm not going to support the amendment because I think you're saying, you're different, we want you. I think if you're going to make some type of recruitment for people that fall into categories, it should be a recruitment on its own legs and its own merit separately from the Title VI that we're putting together under the guidelines. I think if we want that to happen as a council, because our boards aren't being filled out, diversified enough, then we should advertise in other methods. Say, Ken is trying, put it in, black and white, like, hey, we're not getting enough diversity in our boards. Please apply, everyone welcome, or something like that. And so it's just,
Well, I support the intent of the amendment, but I think it muddies, I don't think it's in the appropriate place. I think we vote to adopt and be in compliance with Title VI. How we decide to do that and the efforts that we make afterwards to recruit people, that is a different issue, and I don't think that they belong together in the same thing. So be happy to support something, direction to the administration, or even pass a resolution in that regard, but I think putting them together in this case is not the appropriate place.
Roger?
Yeah, I agree. I thought that the amendment was going to be that we align the language to include the language that we passed as an ordinance that said there would be no discrimination, including everyone. So, yeah, I'm not going to support the ordinance. I think that if we're going to take action, then I think that should be a separate call, and I think we should sit down and actually have a conversation about how we might do that. Because you can mandate action, but if you don't know what are the actions that could be taken, so we could do a little investigating. So I'm not going to support that. I'd prefer that to be a clean bill there, if that means.
Patty, one more time.
One more time, okay, so let me ask my counsel, so if I withdraw the amendment, can we make a resolution following this, or do we have to wait for next council meeting to bring this up, to make it a whole other deal? Because I really think it's powerful to pass an action item along with this statement of our beliefs. And I don't necessarily want to separate those too much, because, I mean, we're already saying, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. Why don't we just say, council says this, we should actively promote minority candidates for boards and commissions. I mean, that's all we're doing is saying that, but it also then turns into a directive for whoever's responsible for promoting the boards and commissions. It's not just a, oh, I wish we would. It's a, this is.
On the amendment.
Amendment. Thank you.
All right. All in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right, now the original motion.
Aye.
Oh,
We're asking for a vote. Why is your hand flying
Oh,
in the air?
nothing?
All right, the original motion. All in favor of the original motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, Heidi.
All right, I would like to make
I
a
bet we heard this
motion.
conversation once before.
And I got to figure out how to state this.
I want to ask a question before you make the motion.
Okay.
Maybe we should state it in committee.
Who's running the committee?
Me.
Jones, can we
Tracy.
put it as an appendix to this thing?
May I speak?
Go ahead. We don't have a motion now.
I can, if you look on page 10 where it says minority representatives on public bodies, I can craft something to add in there that indicates that the city will take aggressive measures to recruit minority members to our bodies, to our public bodies.
Wait a minute, Tracy. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
All right. Garrett?
But it says the city will seek to identify individuals who could bring diverse perspectives to Kent boards and commissions whose names could be put forward when a seat becomes open. I mean,
it's already there.
we put another layer on top of something that we're already doing. The issue is going to come down to, does the council direct the administration that this is the path we want to take and these are the type of people we want to do, or recruit and solicit? And that's not that hard. I mean, Dave's a pretty smart guy. He gets where we're coming from. So it seems like we're overcomplicating this.
All right, quiet. Dave has something to say then.
Well, I appreciate the comment. But
compliment.
Yeah, exactly. And probably the best thing you could do for us, you are in your communities, you're in your neighborhoods, get those people to apply. And you know, you're the one that select the people to go on those boards. So your recruitment ability is probably the most productive method that you can do. Rather than looking to us, we do. Trust me, police and fire have been up against this challenge for many years. And it's across the board. I mean, we're far too vanilla in terms of what we would like to see in terms of diversity. We don't reflect our community. And I think you do know, Mike Lewis is a terrific ambassador. And he works so hard, tirelessly. He goes to churches, he goes to schools, he goes to Kent State, he seeks out minority kids in the criminal justice program and say, please apply for our candidates, or get yourself into the academy, we want you. And it is tough. The one thing we walk away with, and Mike will tell you too, and same with the fire, people, that's your most powerful influence. If you can convince someone that trusts your judgment, and you can say, hey, we really need you to apply. We're happy to continue to actively, aggressively go after candidates, but ultimately, you guys are probably the strongest asset we have.
And community development also actively recruits in churches and organizations and different places as well.
Robin, then we're going to get out of this.
Okay. The bottom line is that we already know that, and what we're trying to do has been dealt with. There are no real necessarily bad existing aspects to the way the city is functioning. I dare say that if there's a story on this tomorrow, we might have greater participation based on a news article being in the paper that we as a city understand we need to do better. And then people feel more welcome getting into the system. That's my hope. But Garret and the guys were saying right. I mean, in cases like we're dealing with, we can get in our own way here. And it appears to me that that might be where we are, because nobody on the dais here has a greater real concern, I believe, than I do, based on who I am and where I come from. So I'm not saying that makes me right. I'm just saying that what it does is, I think I understand what we need to try and do, one to each other, to empower the people who live in the city. And my hope is that this will do it, at least an aspect of it.
Okay, we done with this? All right, we're going to move on to the next item.
All right, piece of paper.
Discussion on visitors' comments, transcript verbatim. Roger, you brought this to us as a motion. You had in your packet, there was a memo from the clerk and also from the city manager on some of these items. Roger, I'll let you go
First, I want to make
first.
sure that the conversation doesn't go way out here, because that's not what we wanted. I want to get the conversation down specifically to those people who, and it kind of piggybacks on our civic engagement we talked about earlier, that when people take the time to come to city council and take their 3 minutes, okay, and have something to say, that I think we need to figure out a way that other people can see exactly what they had to say. And there's a methodology in the thoughtfulness here, because I think if they take the time, I think that's where the real democracy takes place, or when people come and say, I want to take my 3 minutes, and they sign it and they talk. And I'm not sure how to do that, but I will have to say, Tara, I really appreciate all the effort that you did in this, because for those in the audience that haven't seen, I believe, how many communities did you?
I reached out to our whole entire Clerks Association. 37 of them responded.
So in your Clerks Association, you sent out an email?
Yes.
Okay. Can we have a copy of that email when you have a chance, because we'll attach it with this material. I think that's very important to see specifically what you asked and how they responded.
And actually,
considering your
that's in
comments.
this.
So, what's
That's
that?
in the spreadsheet that was attached.
Oh,
I have a
really?
spreadsheet with
I
all
don't
the
have that email.
responses. So,
If you can, I'd like to see that email. All right. I'm curious though, how much time did this take?
not long.
Not long? Okay, so you're able to put this together in a pretty...
Usually when I reach out with an email, I can get a response within, that many responses within a half an hour. Once I had the responses, I already have all of this isn't our first time we've visited this subject.
Okay. Yeah, I
So,
know.
I'm well aware of the highlights of what our standing rules are to allow for visitors' participation, and that they can submit their own verbatim comments, what is required by the Sunshine Laws.
Yeah.
And then we go on to talk about what's required by the Ohio Revised Code. So those things I have to deal with every day. So they're right at the top of my mind. We have a newly adopted records retention schedule, which allows us to keep the audio. There is some other information that I put in there regarding should we require verbatim minutes for a particular case or something we would go to court over. That's not verbatim minutes from me. Those have to be done by a professional court reporter that would have to be hired as a third party.
Can I ask a question, not to interrupt you? Is that because you're not certified as a court recorder, or is it because...
Well, it's both, because a clerk is not a court reporter and a court reporter is not a clerk. And I actually have something that I did not pass out to any of you that I'd like to read that came...
Wait a minute, Roger, are you done?
No, I got a lot of questions.
Yeah,
All right,
well,
he's
this...
got the floor.
Yeah.
Okay, well...
Yeah.
Are you done asking about this, though?
No, I'd like to continue a little bit.
All right.
So I'm just curious about how long, and I think you know the answer, because you probably, I think you said you had done verbatim before or
Yes.
something. How long does it take for to transcribe a 3-minute presentation?
Well, actually, I broke it down a little differently than what a 3-minute presentation is, because our 3 minutes, we necessarily keep within exactly 3 minutes. But last meeting, so we had 7 visitors. Those 7 visitors spoke for a total of 36 minutes, not 21 minutes.
Okay.
Those 36 minutes could convert to a full 7.5 hours of transcription, because every let me backtrack, completely start over, incomplete sentences, people talking over each other, can't hear in the microphone, laughing, sidebar comments. All of that has to be transcribed. That is what verbatim is. And I actually have some breakdowns of what our most recent conversations had, just as an example of some things that were said at the last meeting. I drafted them both ways, the way we normally would, and then I drafted them the way they would sound should we do it verbatim. And it's pretty bad. You can't understand it. So,
Can I ask a question there? I guess I'm a little confused. So are you saying that if someone's standing at the microphone and they're speaking, you still have to include any comments that
Absolutely.
anyone's making here or in the audience?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because you start engaging, you pull back when the mayor says, wait, somebody has the floor, that's in the middle of your conversation. It has to be, verbatim is verbatim. It is every single word that is spoken at a meeting.
But it's so, again, because I'm stupid about this stuff. So what we're saying is that when someone makes a presentation, if we said we want that verbatim, that presentation has to include everything.
Everything.
Including someone coughing in the back.
If someone was to yell out in the background, which we did have at the last meeting.
So what would
it
the
has
term be for someone who comes and stands at the microphone and all we would want is a verbatim transcript of what that person said?
If you wanted a verbatim transcript of just what the person said,
Yeah.
that's not verbatim. That would be a detailed transcript of what the person said, which we do sometimes.
Yes.
It depends. And with the spreadsheet that I had given you basically describes the different types of minutes that are done. And the types of minutes that are done are summary minutes. We have summary with a detailed hybrid, okay? Then we have a summary, detailed, hybrid, and verbatim, because verbatim statements then are put in quotation marks. And then we have some cities that do highly detailed. So it may not include, the I's, the ums, but it gets almost every single word coherent to the point where you're using proper English. So it's making what's coming out of your mouth sound smart, I guess is the way to put it, because the way we speak and the way we write are 2 different ways. And then there are verbatim minutes. And if you were to look at some of there's 2 cities that do them verbatim that responded. One is by ordinance and has been that way for a bazillion years. They haven't changed it. That clerk only does the minutes. They have a deputy clerk. So either the deputy clerk does all the minutes and the clerk does all the rest of the work of the office, or vice versa, they switch off to give each other a break. It is a full-time job to do verbatim minutes. And the second city didn't know any better. That's what they told her, she needed to do verbatim minutes, and she's petrified of her counsel to have the discussion of why we do it this way. And that's all she does, she types minutes. The city manager's assistant does all the rest of the work to prepare for the meeting. Not to interrupt and just to finish, because what I have here is something that may answer some more of your questions, is I reached out to the National Parliamentarian Association, and I received back some information. It is a book called Mastering Council Meetings, a guidebook for elected officials and local governments, and it's authored by Anne McFarlane, who is a professional registered parliamentarian, and she has like a million other letters after her name. And it's actually from the chapter of minutes, and it says that the purpose of minutes is to preserve an accurate record of all council's actions. Council minutes are not intended to inform absent members of all that went on at the meeting they missed, to create a record of the reasons for a council's decision, nor to demonstrate the eloquence and brilliance of elected officials to their public. Council should use action minutes, in which actions are noted briefly and simply. Minutes of this type include the following items: place, time, which members were present, if relevant, the fact of quorum was present, Text of all your main motions taken up by the council and their disposition, whether it was passed, failed, referred to, etc. If any amendments were made, any points of order that were called, and if council went into executive session, and then what time they entered and came back out of and went back into public session and then adjourned. If public comments are made, it's sufficient to note the fact that the comment was made. Some councils go as far to include names and addresses of those who speak, and sometimes go further by summarizing their remarks that members of the public make. At a public hearing, which is a different type of a meeting, that may include contents of the remarks. That's more an appropriate place for that. Then it says if council members wish to have more detail in their minutes, another option is summary minutes. And those minutes will include a brief listing of the chief arguments that are made for and against different motions without attribution to any specific individual. And then the clerk or the secretary...
But excuse me, Tara, excuse me. I think we're getting, again, off the reservation. I just want to focus in on specifically the people who come in
And
to
that's
sign in.
what I was going to read right next, is
Okay.
that the verbatim is detailed minutes are the least desirable. They're sometimes mistakenly referred to as verbatim, which should only apply to minutes taken by a court recorder who captures every word. And then it goes on to talk about they're undesirable for many reasons, and I know Hope can speak to this, that there's legal questions that arise from some of those comments. Delving into the remarks that were made can complicate any kind of council's defense in its actions. There could be expenses involved, other things. It takes up a lot of council's time and takes time away from the office where I could be doing more productive things. Because you have audio recording, and your audio recording today makes it much more wasteful of council's time in preparing those detailed record minutes. So if someone really wanted to hear what somebody had to say, we have that audio recording.
Do we have the ability to take that audio recording and put it on our website so that each month people could just listen?
We will with the new website. I don't believe we have the space in the memory of the current website, the way it is set up to put those, which is why it didn't happen when Linda had it for that little while. She just did it for a couple, and then it maxed out the memory of we weren't able to put documents on there.
It maxed out the memory of our
Whatever it is,
main server, or?
No, it's not, it doesn't come from the server, it comes from the webmaster, from what I understand, if that's correct, Harrison.
Yeah, but
we actually
anyway,
have to.
But the point is that the only way really to get truly a whole flavor of this would be somehow post those and let people just listen and draw their own conclusions.
They can email me, I can forward it to them. I mean, there's ways.
But I think that that's a minimal. I think that we should never do the minimal. I think that, and I really appreciate all the work that you've done. And actually, I've talked to Hope about this too, and I appreciate the fact that we are meeting the standard. But I think too many times we are comfortable with hiding behind meeting the standard and not trying to excel.
We actually meet more than the standard.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that too, but I think we could even do more. So if, I just think it was important that all of us in council hear kind of what the ramifications are of, taking minutes and what the minutes should look like. I would still argue, personally, this is just an argument. I don't have any more questions, by the way, Mr. Mayor, but I would just argue that.
John?
They should be that way.
Is it possible? I have looked at hundreds of websites, so we could call one website the council website, and they have meetings with topics highlighted, and you push a button if you want to hear the topic, and the information is stored somewhere else, like with my security, it's all on clouds, whatever those are, and there's different, everybody like Racing Junk, I can go back for years of highlighted stuff that they had, and they say, what do you want to talk about? You search the thing, they have all the highlights on the topic, you push a button, and I'm the dumbest computer guy in the world, and pop, here comes the little video audio of that particular meeting where they discuss stuff. Is it possible that we could look at something like that?
I'd like to answer that. There are some third-party software companies, and actually there are a lot of them that they approach all the cities where your minutes are done, and as they're transcribed, they connect time-wise So as I type the minutes, it's connected time-wise, it's done through a software program. And if you click on a specific spot, it will take you right to that specific audio. You can listen to it. Once we have video, it'll connect you directly to that video. So if you want to see someone's actions, hear someone's actions based on where those minutes were from, we could even go, a lot of the cities that go through summary minutes, they click on the action, you just hear the roll call and things, and see that in written minutes, which is the requirement. But if you click on that, you hear everything else that's transpired. You can watch everything else that has transpired. That there are many software programs out there that do that.
It's simple and transparent to me.
Roger?
Yes, so Tara, I want to make sure I understand. So your feeling is that the minutes that we get, and again, my focus is not the whole action, it's people who come and stand.
Mm-hmm.
The minutes that we're getting is a hybrid between detailed and summary?
Yes.
From your perspective?
Yes,
That-
from anyone who has done minutes and the professionals out there. What we do is a summary minutes, detailed minute, hybrid, and sometimes put in verbatim.
And we have the ability, another question.
Go ahead.
We have the ability to ask for, if we ask for verbatim, maybe that's a bad, maybe we need.
I think the word verbatim is wrong.
I do too.
What I'm hearing is that people that come to council gave their 3 minutes and look at the minutes and said, this doesn't reflect what I said.
Right.
So there, maybe verbatim isn't the exact word, because the person at the microphone doesn't need to hear the guy coughing in the backyard.
Right, yeah, detailed maybe, or.
Yeah.
or-
And we're not getting that.
And we'd be able to say
Okay.
that we would
Yeah.
like to have that done, correct, on an individual basis?
You could, on an individual basis, you can do it. It has been done. The mayor has said, I want certain portions detailed. The minutes have been
Well, somewhere I
transcribed
think
that
I
way.
read, didn't you send something, one of our, it says that anyone on council could ask for that?
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
That's exactly right.
Right, and so, and the mayor has asked during a specific meeting, you have to ask on the spot for that specific meeting for things to be done. So if you want, if Ms. Shaffer was to make a comment, and she has several times said, I would like that in there verbatim, what I said, we have to put it in verbatim. Basically, it's a trust in your clerk to know what she's doing, to make it, the public understand the legislative actions that happened at your meeting. Because what the visitors have to say do not have anything to do with the roll calls, the legislative actions, and those things. And, I mean, that is my job. That is my job to bring that forward to you as a draft set of minutes that you all approve and have been approving for every month for the last 2 years I've been here. So, you know, to change it, you just have to tell me to change it. However, you have to understand that it's going to take an inordinate amount of time to change that.
Go ahead, you got the floor, right?
I just one more question. So is your role as the clerk, you aren't allowed to editorialize. All you can do is basically report whatever that person said.
As a clerk, you can editorialize as long as it has all of the points summarized. Yes.
Maybe I'm not using the right term. So you
So-
can, what I'm driving at, Tara, is that you're kind of put under the gun, right, to make sure that you're not, that when someone says something, like if a blue car pulled into this council room, we see a blue car, but we might see, some of us might see a teal blue car. Some of us might see a type of blue car. So that's kind of editorializing. So how do you guard against, so that when you do those, how do you guard against making sure that you summarize?
Okay, let me,
I've read all these minutes.
All right.
I'm blurry from reading all these minutes.
let me give you a perfect example.
Okay.
And I'm going to use you as the example. Okay?
Bad example.
Detailed. This is not verbatim, but it's as close to verbatim as we can get.
Okay.
It was during your last council member meeting, your comments. Mr. Sidoti commented, I will tell you what, I really got to. West Main Street, it's miracle. No one has been killed out there, thank God, or injured because of these crazy drivers. But the city has been working really hard to do the state's job the state should be doing, and I've heard people have actually called me, and the efforts of our crew out there are repairing. I know it's almost an impossibility. They are doing the best they can, and I couldn't believe how people drive around our workers. They've done a great job. That's what you said.
That's verbatim?
That's verbatim.
Man, it's better than I thought.
Now, here's how I would
Yeah.
summarize it.
Yeah.
Mr. Sidoti commented on how he has heard from a few people about the great job our city employees are doing on West Main Street, even though it is the state's job. It is a miracle, even with them having to deal with the safety issues with all the crazy drivers out there.
So basically, you're saying the same thing.
I'm saying exactly the same thing that's summarized in a sentence and a half versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 broken sentences.
Okay. I have no more questions. Robin?
Yeah, Mayor, I think you hit the nail on the head. The issue is not as important as what we as council think or feel. It's the person who comes to the microphone. And when a person comes to the microphone, if they don't agree with the summary at the end of the day, that's the problem. It goes to the integrity of the process. And I think we really have to, as a body, understand that the individual who got up here and spoke, and we summarized it, says, that's not what I meant, that's not what I really said. It could be the words, the emphasis could be one way or another way, but when you summarize it, it changes the thrust or the overall meaning to them of what they were trying to express. And I think that, I gotta go with Roger. I think that the issue is when people come up and say what they think or feel, and then we end up coming up with something, and most of these things right now have been adversarial. That's the problem. Because when these discussions, you're never going to really hear a big deal about something. Somebody gets up and says that we did a great job filling a pothole. The issue is going to be when somebody gets up and says, that's not what I said, that's not what I meant. We said, well, we summarized it. That's not what I said, that's not what I meant. I think we have to be able to ensure that the integrity of this process is right to them, and that will make what we do have greater integrity.
And does Ronna have the audio tape?
That it?
Yes.
Tracy?
So I don't know, can we just ask the person, would you like a detailed or just was a summary, okay?
You can't ask the person that. It has to come from, the direction has to come from council. But we already do, because we have a whole set of minutes in our standing rules that say anyone can submit their verbatim written statement. It is their words, the way they wrote them, the way they wanted them heard. And a lot of people don't get to finish their 3 minutes. And if they don't finish their 3 minutes, their entire 8-page statement is still in our minutes. I mean, Mr. Noble, he had 8 pages of stuff he sent me, and he emailed it to me. He didn't read all 8 pages, but every ounce of that, what he had to say for those 8 pages. I mean, we've had many people submit, and I just put them on at C attachment 1. We do it for Democracy Day. Not one person do I have to summarize their stuff because they bring their written statement. They want to be heard. They want to be heard in their words the way they wrote it. And that's the best way to do it, and that's why we provide for that in our visitors portion on our standing rules, is that if someone wants to be heard and they want it in their verbatim, submit it in writing. We have not had an issue with that until recently. I mean, that someone has had an issue with summarizing or thinking, or not giving enough detail into what was being summarized. And you guys all approved the minutes. It's the way they come out. You guys approved them. So I guess I'm torn as to what we've always done it that way since I've been here. Kind of did it that way when Linda was here. I'm just shocked, I guess, a little bit shocked that all of a sudden
Heidi,
we're doing this.
did you have your hand up?
I did not.
All right, Mike.
How long do we keep the tapes for?
Currently, the records retention was just increased to 1 year because we used to destroy them after the minutes were adopted. So we have been keeping them since January, I believe it was, January when we went, no, May, I'm trying to think when it was. May. We have, every audio recording from every meeting will be kept for 1 year.
Why do we destroy them? And why do we not keep them? They're not, it's not like you're putting them in a reel-to-reel tape anymore and put them on a shelf. You put them on a little disc.
We don't even put them on the disk.
Well-
It stays in the memory on our server when it downloads from the little machine I have right here, and it downloads into a file for me to listen to. The problem is it's not in a format that anybody can listen to. I can
You
send
cannot
it.
burn them onto a CD.
I could if I had to, but why if it's already in the memory of the server right at the moment?
Well,
We would burn them.
Do you ever have the question come up, can I get a copy of the meeting? Do you burn them a CD and give that to them, or sell that
I've
to them,
been
or
brought
whatever?
flash drives.
Yeah.
I have been brought, somebody has brought me a recording device and just recorded, through the speaker. We have burned onto CDs. We have to charge for the cost of whatever, but sometimes they'll bring their own and it doesn't cost them anything. That has happened 3 times since I've been here. We've only had 3 requests for someone to have a copy of the audio.
So that is available.
Yes, it is available.
Finish, Mike?
Yep.
Gwen?
I just have just a couple of points I want to bring up. About residents coming to meetings very often. I think that residents show up, maybe not necessarily planning on speaking, so they may not have prepared statements. I think we should account for the fact that even if someone shows up without a prepared written statement, that what they say to us is accurately reflected in enough detail that they feel satisfied that other people that would be reading the minutes to have an understanding of what happened at the meeting, they understand what they conveyed. Also, for the conversion or the audio, I requested the audio once and was given the audio, thank you very much, but it doesn't include any kind of conversion software, which is required in order to listen to the audio. So we're putting the onus on our residents to, after they request the audio, to find a conversion software online. Once they have it, we can convert it. I mean, we can put entire movies on just a few moments at a time. I think it can go up on websites. I think the conversion software should be something that we should be, at the very least, providing for residents so that when they request it, just let me finish up, please. That we should be providing at our cost so that residents can kind of plug in and listen to it. So those are my thoughts. And then also, I think having the audio on the website, I think is a good thing. I think that is transparency, and I think that's what we should be all about.
I agree wholeheartedly. Anybody else?
I'd like to answer the
Mike,
audio.
you have
Well,
something?
just another thing about the audio, when you're listening to something, you do get the tone. You do have, the and all that other stuff, but, at least you can tell if someone raises their temper. You can't do that by reading minutes. But if you have that audio, you can tell if someone's getting out of control or, raising their voices and pointing fingers, You can't see it on audio, but you know what I mean. But
That is true, because you can't reflect tone in writing.
You done? Mm-hmm. Heidi? Now? You had your hand up.
I do have something, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Tara, how often have council members asked for changes in the minutes because they thought your interpretation wasn't?
None.
Zero
can't.
since we
Zero.
started?
They can. It has to be a motion from the floor. Am I right, Tara?
When we adopt the minutes
Yes.
each time, we adopt several sets of minutes at each meeting, that is when you have the opportunity to ask for a change made to the minutes before those minutes are adopted. And only once has someone come to me with a typographical error, and that was Ms. Wallach. She's come with, minor typographical errors or something, but not once has anyone come to me.
That's typographical. I understand that. But you people vote on the minutes.
Yes, we do.
They pass. I sign them on your behalf. That's my job. Heidi?
Well, just saying that, we're exhibiting by that, we're exhibiting trust in the professionalism of our clerk of council. The concern to me, and that's my question, is what is the concern? It's for visitors, and they should have the option to check what is said and talk to a council person to object to how they have been interpreted at the last, when the minutes are adopted? Is that it? Because we still need the official record, no matter what we do, whether we do CDs, put it on the website, blah, blah, blah. Very few people want to listen through all of the ayes and ayes and ayes, when we go through our typical council meeting. But the minutes are the official record of what has happened. So when somebody, council person, or somebody who's a visitor who has spoken, they have the right to see the minutes because they're posted.
A week early.
A week early. And they can, approach a council person? Is that the process? To say, I don't like how I was portrayed? What would be the procedure for a citizen to state, to ask for a change, or is that the concern here?
This is my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
We have a committee meeting, just like we're having tonight. The clerk is going to do the minutes.
Correct.
They're going to be posted. They're online. If somebody does not agree with what was said, beginning of the council meeting, before we accept those minutes, they have 3 minutes to come to that mic and say something. Does that answer your question?
It does, and then it's incumbent upon one of us to request that.
It could be us, it could
we
be
go
any of the
back
general public.
to- Yes. Can we please listen to the tape again? Can we ask Tara to listen to the tape again, taking into account what this person has raised, blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying, what's the process for the official record to be changed if somebody disagrees with it?
It would have to be reported by the person complaining to a council member. A council member would have to bring it in front of council, and it would have to be a consensus of council to change those minutes.
Consensus
you'd need
meaning?
Meaning more than half.
Okay.
And you would have to, and then the minutes could not be adopted. We'd have to go back and redraft, and it would have to wait a whole nother month
But there is,
before.
we have that in place. We can
Yes.
do that.
We do.
So that's our main concern, though, because we haven't sent Tara, we haven't raised objections about.
And the minutes aren't just looked
Yeah.
at by me. They're
Uh-huh.
looked at by me. Certain sections of the minutes are reviewed by the law director, certain section, and you all have them a week before. Sometimes sooner if I have them done sooner. If it's been on a topic that's like when we did all the LGBTQ community, we sent them out because they were so involved. We do have that ability, so.
So the question is, because we've had a couple of people say they don't like the way that they've been interpreted in the official record, we might change our whole way of doing things versus just allowing there to be, a way for that, there to be a second attempt at that, okay, you think that we misheard you, maybe Tara and the mayor listen to the tape and, see whether or not that there's an interpretation problem. That's all I'm saying, is that maybe we just need to clarify what the process is, because it doesn't come up very often.
Are you finished, Heidi? Rogers and John.
Well, at some point, I would offer that in light of the fact that we're going to be talking about the new city hall, the capabilities of being able to video, the capabilities of being able to live stream, all those things, that maybe we should table this discussion and come circle back around in terms of what we really want with a larger discussion in terms of how we're going to document the things. But I don't know that it's appropriate to make
Better
that
technology is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, maybe it'd be better if we, maybe that would help with the situation.
John?
Okay, so Tara probably have to answer this. So if I'm understanding this correctly, we start a council meeting, the public will always have the first 3 minutes before we approve minutes, is that correct?
It comes under public communication.
Okay, so they,
That's my understanding.
so the public comes up, speaks before we approve any minutes.
That's
No.
in line.
No,
No, at the beginning of the meeting, do we not do public communications, then we get in the committee?
we have, we're regular meeting minutes, special committee meeting minutes, and public hearing minutes, and
All right,
work
where's
session
the
minutes
public
are
communications come in?
right below that, but then all your other minutes are adopted after that.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
So I guess what the point I'm trying to ask is that anybody can come up prior to us accepting the meetings,
They could-
minutes,
Yeah.
and then if we hear the objection, as responsible council members, we can make the choice of not accepting the minutes.
They could walk up to you before the meeting even starts and say something, and then it would be on you to bring
So
it
that
forward
that
when we get to
sequence
the
of
minutes. The sequence.
complaint and dealing with the complaint
Right.
is always in order to where they're not going to complain after we voted.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, they can simply walk up to you before the meeting starts.
Tracy?
How do they access the minutes, though? Because they're not up on, I mean, they used to be up online in
Yeah, they are.
draft form.
They
So
are.
now
They're in the
back up
packet.
online in draft form?
Harrison uploads the entire packet.
Okay, because I
Yep.
know for a while that wasn't happening.
Yep, no, it's been that way, yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking maybe until we get the new technology, every time a person speaks, can't we just give them a little piece of paper that says, if you're not happy with your, go to so-and-so, look at your minutes, or you're not happy with them, let us know or something? Wouldn't that solve the problem?
It's normally how it happens anyway at most council meetings, is if someone's not happy, they let council know, and then it's council's
But the
decision
resident, They
to.
don't know the process, though, so I'm saying give them a little card that shows them the process.
Maybe the mayor could say that when he opens.
Yeah.
I mean, when we keep the sign-in sheet, right, when we keep, we could do it with the sign-in sheet here
What
too.
resume?
I mean, we have the sign-in sheet, with the sign-in sheet, we have the standing rules, so that, if anybody has a question, they're right behind the sign-in sheet. We only use the sign-in sheet, though, for regular meetings and special meetings. We don't use them for committee meetings, so I have to keep track of everybody who comes to the microphone separately. We don't have a sign-in sheet for those, so, I mean, it's something we can have right there, posted right there with the sign-in sheet. Yeah, we can have it right with the sign-in sheet right here on the corner.
Right there, yeah, so that they can see it, and that would take care of that.
Mhm.
Are we all done? Before I go to the audience?
Garrett's got
Oh, Garrett.
I was going to move to table, but if you want to go to the audience.
I was,
I think we're doing an adequate job, but I think we can do better. I mean, Dave sent this thing out, Ohio Open Minutes Act, and the one thing says, and I understand verbatim, maybe it's not the right thing we ought to be saying, but we ought to have detailed minutes so the public understands what was said. So that's the handout that Dave sent out. No more?
Actually, I sent that out.
No more?
Yeah.
We're gonna go to the audience. Keep it to the point. Are you first? You want to come to the mic and give your name and address for the minute?
My name is Christopher Myers. I live at 220 East Elm Street. At a meeting, I suggested, because I was unhappy with the way the clerk summarizes what I've said, I've got many instances where it's just far out, man. And I made a suggestion that prior to the minutes being approved, that a person should be able to make an objection if they have an objection. But it doesn't work that way. And when I made that suggestion, the law director said, Mr. Myers, you don't have a vote. I mean, as if I don't know I don't have a vote. I'm only making a suggestion. So I thought that was kind of very strange. Anyway, I can cite many, many instances where the clerk gets everything wrong that I say. One of those is when I made a formal complaint against Heidi Shaffer. And the clerk wrote in there that I was unhappy with Heidi Shaffer. No, I wasn't unhappy. I made a formal complaint. Now, why can't that be there? That I made a formal complaint instead of I'm unhappy? Because that does not reflect my chagrin. I can also talk about when I came down here and I talked about the Founding Fathers and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Abraham Lincoln and all the people who want better things and a wonderful way, for this country to go. And then I talked about fascists. And you know what she wrote? She wrote, Mr. Myers came down and made an oration. Oh, you know, that had nothing to do with what I said. I don't trust her at all.
Well, let's keep it civil.
I am being civil. I'm saying I don't trust her.
Well, don't trust me. Leave her alone.
No, I can't leave her alone. She filed a criminal police report against me.
That's not in the subject. We're talking about minutes.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right.
Because of the way her minutes are, it got to the point where there's a criminal police report against me by her, backed by Hope Jones, and by all the rest of you for saying nothing. And I have gone ahead now with my lawsuit in federal court. It's happened. So good luck. Thank you.
We're in litigation. We are done.
What's that?
If you're going to litigation, we are done with this.
Yes,
This
we are
body.
done.
All right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anybody else from the audience? Yes, sir. Come up, give the name and address for the minutes.
Jason Noble, 7803 Birchwood, Kent. First off, I just want to say that all my interactions with Ms. Grimm have been fantastic, extremely professional. But I just want to say that, like, you guys already know my case, and we'll get to that later. But had something like an audio recording been available on the city council website, so I could have gone to the minutes of last month's and been like, okay, this is exactly what they said. This is what I need to prepare for to come and speak with you guys about. That would have alleviated me racking my brain for 2 weeks straight and creating an 8-page speech that I had to condense down to 3 quick minutes. But like the technology is there. Dropboxes are a dime a dozen, and we've got some of the most brilliant minds in the world right next door. So I think that's a fantastic idea. Just from a community member and business owner perspective, had I had that knowledge and that power to get up and like listen to what was actually said so that I know how to form my defense, that would have been tremendously helpful. So I love the idea. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else from the audience? Back to council, is there anything, or Mr. Sidoti?
I'd like to make a motion to table the conversation and bring it back around when we are talking about the new city hall and the technology that we can use to try to get closer as quickly as possible to.
Does Mr. Sidoti have a second to
Second.
that? Second by Mr. Ferrara. Is there any other discussion, Roger?
Nope.
Mr. Ferrara?
I would just say that I think it's a good motion, and I think the intent when we have the discussion should be more on how do we implement technology to define what we're trying to do and provide the information as opposed to trying to worry about verbatim and that type of thing.
Anybody else? Tracy, you're half up or half down?
I mean, the motion is to table it, and so I have something else to say.
All right.
Well, all right, I'll say. So I agree to table it. The problem that we have right now is we have antiquated technology, and that's our problem. We can't get it on our website because of the size of our antiquated technology. So I'd say it'd be good to table it.
Okay. Anybody else? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. And we're in the health and public safety, and because Mr. Amrhein is not here, Roger, it's all yours.
Ah, wonderful. Okay. Call the Health and Safety Committee together. I think we have a presentation by our Health Department. Right there.
It won't be hard to do as bad as you've done.
All right, good evening. Tonight, you guys have a great opportunity here as we're revisiting this subject to eliminate the exemptions and do what's right for the youth of Kent. This law doesn't only affect 18 to 20-year-olds, which is the nexus of the tobacco 21 law, or ordinance, but also the fact that you're not only protecting these people, they're protecting their younger sisters, their younger brothers, their nieces, their nephews, their younger friends, as we'll hear from the school here in a couple minutes. As mentioned in the latest Record Courier article, a local business sells this to 18 to 20-year-olds because they think it's cool. That's a true and tried marketing strategy from the cigarette companies. Joe Camel, Marlboro Man, they were all cool back in the day. Well, it wasn't cool when we found out this gave people cancer and affected their lives forever. I'm going to give you some real facts about vaping. 1 in 3 people in this country vape daily. That's an addiction. E-cigarettes contain levels of nicotine that are often more than the average cigarette. As we know, vape products come without nicotine. Standard nicotine is a cigarette, could be double the nicotine. It could be even up to 4 times the nicotine that's in a standard cigarette. We know nicotine is addictive. There are nearly 500 brands and 7,700 different flavors of these products out there. And if we're mixing them, we can have even more flavors. Not one of them has been evaluated by the FDA for safety. The last month, there's been a lot of research out, especially by Johns Hopkins University and other fine institutions, that NIH, CDC. Vaping leads to negative health consequences. Damage to the brain, heart, and lungs. Cancerous tumor development. How do we know that? Because they've been growing it in mice and lab rats, because vapor products contain over 10 different carcinogens that we know of today. And like I said, we haven't tested them all. Preterm deliveries and stillbirths in pregnant women, harmful effects on brain and lung development when use occurs during fetal development in adolescent. This is very similar to what cigarettes do. And I think you guys have heard this maybe in your last council meetings, that vaping products are used to get people off of cigarettes. No truth to that. Using e-cigarettes and other vaping devices is not a proven method for quitting. If it was a proven method for quitting, they would be in smoking cessation programs. Not one smoking cessation program in our country uses vapor products to wean people off of cigarettes. In fact, e-cigarettes and other vaping devices are frequently used in addition to smoking cigarettes. So now we have dual addiction. In fact, 59% of the people in 2015 who recently used e-cigarettes also smoked cigarettes with the e-cigarettes. There is zero evidence that the aerosol from these products is safe, as the vapor contains carcinogens. There are 10 carcinogens that we know of: benzene, cadmium, formaldehyde, isoprene, lead, nickel, toluene, and 2 I don't even want to pronounce. Okay? I'm going to keep it simple because we have a lot of people here to talk about. But I'm going to throw kind of some things you mentioned, Roger. We should never do just the minimum. And I think by providing exemptions, we are doing the bare minimum. We're not protecting the 18 to 20-year-olds. We're not protecting their younger youth that they're in contact with. And also, we need to give people what they want. We did extensive research with the public on this. 76% of your constituents wants tobacco 21 with vapor products excluded from it. We even had community forums on this. So we're doing what the public really wants, and that's why we brought this legislation to you. So I'm going to have other speakers come up because I'm sure there's several other that want to talk on this issue. But I wanted to keep it simple since I've given you guys all the facts before and other things. But now there's some real research starting to come out of this. The FDA also just pulled a lot of these products from the shelves because they are marketed as juice boxes and other items that kids want. Cotton candy, like I said, 7,700 different flavors.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor of the ordinance, in support of the ordinance?
My name is George Joseph, 321 North of Peister. I'm representing the school district. I am the superintendent of Kent City Schools. I'm going to be very brief. I just had a conversation with my principals about an article that is titled 10 Things School Principals Need to Know About JUUL. That's J-U-U-L. And I have copies here. I have 11 copies, so I'm not sure. I think I'm one short, but I will put that right here for you.
Give them the clerk.
Thank you.
With that, I wanted you to know that part of the superintendent's job, other than calling off school days and when it snows, is to deal with expulsions. And it's the part of the job that I really don't enjoy, but I take very seriously because I use all of our expulsions as a learning experience for our kids. And again, if you're not familiar, an expulsion happens after 10 days of a suspension. And I have to say, there has been an increase of suspensions and expulsions due to electronic cigarettes or e-cigarettes. And in fact, I just had a reporter from the Plain Dealer contact me last week and ask me specific questions, in fact, 3 specific questions. And I was able to answer those questions way too easily. And the last of the 3 questions was, well, have you noticed an increase? Well, there has been an increase. And again, the increase was not with our 18-year-olds. The increase is with our middle schoolers and younger. So when Jeff mentions that this is targeted to 18 to 21-year-olds, it's not. It's not. It is really being marketed to younger, and that's hence the cotton candy, the different flavors, the bubble gum. Those flavors are just very enticing to kids in general. And I'm talking teenagers and what we refer to as tweens, which are just younger than that. Tonight, I brought 2 people with me from our school district. I have Jackie Peoples-Dukes, who works with our high school at Roosevelt. And I also have Aaron Heido, who is our Dean of Students at Stanton Middle School. And I, again, they could tell you firsthand how the increase has happened not just at Roosevelt, but also at Stanton. And I could have brought the rest of our team of administrators from even the elementary, and they would be able to talk to you about the same thing. In fact, my very first suspension took place at summer camp in July. And what happened was that a student had an e-cigarette and set off an alarm off campus, and it created a big issue. And again, my very first disciplinary action for the year had to deal with an e-cigarette. That's all I have to say.
Question? Yes.
So just so we can differentiate, is there any difference between the e-cigarette product and any other form of physical tobacco like dip or cigarettes? And in terms of what you classify as allowed or not allowed, and what is susceptible to suspension?
Our e-cigarettes are looked at in policy as tobacco products. I believe it's missing the tar. Is that correct, Jeff? But all the other chemicals are there. In fact, what Jeff said originally, sometimes the nicotine's 4 times the amount than a regular cigarette.
It's a zero tolerance policy for
correct
tobacco products
correct
on any of the school campuses.
Correct.
And right. And it's here and there. What percentage of the suspensions from the tobacco use are from the e-cigarette versus what we consider normal tobacco use?
It's hard to put your finger on it, but I would say a third would be close, Jackie, would you say that?
I would agree. It's hard to say because sometimes they're incorporated into other, you know, a multitude of things, or they might be using multiple products. But definitely there's been an increase with e-cigarettes and vaping products just in a year's time.
But just for the record, they're both looked at equally in the eyes of.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. And we do have a smoke-free campus.
And tobacco-free, right?
Well, I'm sorry?
Tobacco-free, right?
Tobacco-free, yes, tobacco-free. And when we go somewhere on a field trip, it goes with us as well.
Thank you.
When you say a smoke-free campus, you mean also vapor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh.
Tracy.
So my question is, Kent adopted this policy, what's going to keep the students from going outside of Kent? Are you working to get all the other communities in the area to adopt the 21 legislation too, or just Kent? Because it's not going to help if just Kent has a 21 and everybody around us continues not to have 21.
Well, I can speak for the school district. We have a zero policy.
That's a good answer.
Yes, I can only speak for the school district. And again, you know, I wish I brought it with us, but the Ohio Department of Health provided us a second year of a rating of our tobacco policy, and for the second year we've received an A+. The unfortunate thing is that we're the only school district in Portage County to even submit our policy.
Mr. Mayor, you were going to comment?
Now, Tracy asked a question, you know, this was brought up, and Dave can speak to this, in our mayor's meeting that we have once a month, and it generated from Akron, and it's moving out. So it's going to hit everybody sooner or later.
Yeah, and if I can help answer that too, as soon as, like the sheets going down 59, not in Kent, Franklin Township. Acme on the other side, they're not selling these, they're going to raise the age, to 21 to sell these products. Why? Because it's the corporate is looking at it, same with Drug Mart, as the right thing to do. So.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, Heidi.
Yeah, how will this impact online sales? Because I'm reading this article about Juuls and how they can do, how a lot of that is online.
We as a health department can't regulate what's online. We can only regulate what's in our stores in Kent.
And is it legal for, just some, I mean, this is a stupid question, but at what point does it become illegal? At what age does it become illegal to actually possess a vapor product?
Well, right now you have to be 18 to purchase it. I mean, in many places.
To possess,
Yeah.
to use.
Correct.
What's
To purchase.
To use.
To
No,
purchase.
use.
What's to use?
Yeah,
I mean,
to
that's
use.
unlimited. It could be 8, 10, 6.
You can be of any age to use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
This law is actually.
Sorry, could you please give your name and, yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Wendy Hyde. I'm with the Tobacco 21, and we are an organization that works to promote at the nationally to raise the age from 18 to 21. We have worked in over 330 communities, and we have 6 states that have raised the legal age from 18 to 21. Minimum sales age from 18 to 21. Here in Ohio, we have 14 communities that we're actively working with. And in addition to that, many other communities are well on their way to establishing the same type of protective ordinance. This is a civil ordinance. This is not a criminal ordinance. In fact, we, from the Tobacco 21 organization, do not support any PUP-type ordinance, which would be criminalizing the possession or use of a tobacco or nicotine product. This is strictly on the retail sales end. What we know to be true is that there's 3 forms of addiction to nicotine, right? There's a physical addiction to nicotine, which many of us are well aware of. There's a psychological addiction to nicotine. And then there's the social norming part that takes place with nicotine. And by raising the age from 18 to 21, what we're doing is restricting that social norming that takes place. We're also restricting youth access. When I stood in front of all of you
in July, I believe, and I brought a jewel pod and showed you how easy it is to slide into my computer and plug it in, my laptop and plug it in. And now I want to tell you that it is consumed over 72% of all sales of e-cigarette market are from the Juul product. And the use that is being utilized is from our middle schoolers up until our young adult ages. In fact, 44% of all, actually 51% of all e-cigarette use is to those under the age of 35, and 41% of them are single use. In other words, they were not combustible product users prior to adopting an e-cigarette nicotine addiction. Also, what we're hoping to do, or what this ordinance does, is it prohibits that 14-year-old who has access to the 18-year-old and the 18 who has access to that 14-year-old on a regular basis. And by restricting that, what we found in Needingham, Massachusetts, in fact, which was the first city to adopt a tobacco 21 policy, is that within 5 years, actually within 2 years, it lowered their rate of nicotine addiction in use among that small community in Needingham, Massachusetts by over 50%, even without the surrounding communities adopting the same language in their ordinance. So this is an effective policy measure. Is it going to solve all nicotine use and addiction? Probably not. But is it an absolutely productive way to restrict youth access by raising the minimum sales age? Absolutely. And so that's what we're here to do. And go ahead. Yes.
Tracy?
You keep focusing on 18, 18, because in high school there are still 18-year-olds as seniors. Is that why?
Yes, absolutely.
19-year-olds.
18 and 19-year-olds that are seniors. And as I mentioned, July, my 14-year-old gets on a bus every morning with 18-year-olds. They, have easy access in their social groups. They go to maybe to gatherings together. So that's why that availability takes place at that age. And if we're talking about our older young adult population between the ages of 18 and 21, we know that they only purchase 2% of all tobacco sales, but they provide that 90% of the use by those under the age of 18. Okay, this is again looking at restricting access to the young population. And as far as the exemption go, I do also want to say that here's how I see the exemption. So I met a young lady here this evening who is 20 years old, okay? The exemption would be like me taking this young lady out after we leave here this evening and stopping in at the local pub, the local tavern, and going out and buying a, alcoholic beverage and taking to the table and setting it down and sharing it with her. That's what an exemption for a hookah bar is, right? Because what you're doing is actually, I can't purchase the product under the age of 21, but I can go and purchase it and then share it in a hookah session. So that's why, in my opinion, the exemption really needs to be removed, and we need to go with best practice measures as we had originally discussed, or as was originally discussed in council.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this issue?
Christopher Wolverton, 1203 Windward. I'm currently professor of the College of Public Health at Kent State. I teach two primary courses. The first one is called Risk Assessment, and the second one's called The Biological Basis of Public Health. Both of these courses have taught me some very important facts that I think are pertinent to this conversation. The first is, it is well documented what the effects of nicotine and the carcinogens are that are produced when tobacco of any kind, when organic materials of any kind are heated to the temperatures to generate a vapor. Those chemicals, including pure flavoring, you can go into your house and pour vanilla extract into a pan and stick it in the oven at 300 degrees, you will create carcinogens. It's the way biology works. It's what happens when we burn things. It's what we call pollution, and we call it pollution because it sounds nicer when we do that, rather than saying we're creating carcinogens when we burn leaves in the backyard. The second thing that is of critical importance to me as an educator comes from the course called risk assessment. And it's one of the things that I try to get across to my graduate students who then go out and teach others. And that is, there's a reason many, many years ago, car and truck rental companies refused to rent to anyone under the age of 25. Because hard data shows they are the greatest risk at causing an accident. When you look at the cause of that risk, it stems to one biological fact. The decision-making parts of our brain, called the prefrontal cortex, do not develop completely until age 25 to 27. That's why insurance agencies long ago said, we're not going to take the chance of renting you a vehicle because statistically, you're going to be the cause of an accident. And so if you take that to the next level of this conversation, anyone under the age of 25, biologically, does not have the full capacity to make a decision based in probability and consequence that would lead to rational, logical decision making. If you back that up to 21, it's even worse. To 18, worse yet. And now when we start talking about 12, there is no rational decision-making process that is suitable at age 12 for protecting themselves as well as the people with whom they associate. And so as a professor of public health, I can quote you all kinds of statistics on the negative aspects of burning materials and inhaling them. The consequences go far beyond the lungs. Those vapors get into the bloodstream. They go all throughout the body. They cause not only cancer, but acute toxicities that result in all kinds of damage. And all you have to do is talk to one person who has to speak with a synthetic voice maker because of the consequence of smoking 20 years of cigarettes, and you'll understand what risk really is associated with vapor-generated products. Thank you.
Yes, Heidi.
Yeah, in your opinion, do you think that vapes and tobacco products should be illegal to use?
I don't feel competent to answer that type of question. That's outside of my purview. My job is to look at data that are generated by scientists and to interpret the data so that I can educate my students. That goes beyond my purview.
I read somewhere, or somebody said that the FDA has not looked at vapes or the stool product.
So what the normal process is, because federal agencies don't typically, in my opinion, use the tax base to do this type of work, they rely on university researchers and private foundations to generate the data. If you, as Commissioner Neidstedt pointed out, in the last month, there were probably, at my count alone, 8 papers that were published on new information related to vapor products. And 2 additional carcinogens were just named to the list that are generated in vaping because, again, the high temperature of the materials that are being produced.
Bad idea, it sounds like.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Interesting. Yes.
This is, you still want people for the ordinance, right?
Either way, I said, I think we had everyone who was talking for, so. I think you're up.
All right, Jason Noble, 7803 Birchwood, Kent, 44240. Let's talk about that 20-year-old smoker with the voice box, first of all. What if I were to tell you that...
you have to speak in the microphone.
All right.
You should be,
What if I were to
speak in
say
the console, please.
that we were able to help him put the cigarettes down? where does that put vaping? Does that still keep vaping in the negative, bad aspect? All right, we talked earlier about Kent and why we love Kent. And the reason I love Kent is because it's a cultural melting pot. It's progressive. It's cool. It's Kent. It's unlike Cuyahoga Falls. It's unlike Stowe. Like, people come to Kent from all over the place for the vibe, for the atmosphere, for all the different little shops. All right? My shop is one of those little shops. And yes, we sell electronic cigarettes. We hand make the liquids that go into them. And we hate Juul just as much as these guys hate Juul. Juul is big tobacco ruining what we are doing as an industry. We talked earlier about discrimination. What's being told to me is I have to discriminate against my existing customers. The federal government tells us that 18 years old is the legal voting age. It's the legal age to go fight. It's the legal age to go get married. You do anything you want at 18. You go to college, and what I'm saying is, are 18-year-olds as developed as a 21-year-old? No. Are 18-year-olds the same as a 30-year-old? No. Is a 21-year-old the same as a 30-year-old? No. But who are we to say, okay, you have to discriminate against this person because, oh, now the age raised, and no, you can no longer do this. However, the biggest target demographic that we are fighting in this Tobacco 21 lives at the university. The university can walk 30 seconds to the sheets. They can walk across the street to the vape shop right next to Acme, which is not upping their age to 21, and they can get these products. They can order online. They can drive to Ravenna. They can drive to Stowe. We brought up this point, and what we're saying is we agree smoking is bad. Like, it's my personal opinion that vaping is better, but it's not 100% hallelujah. But, I am so proud that I am no longer a cigarette smoker. Has anybody here quit smoking cigarettes as a result of using vape devices? Just out of curiosity. Okay. Does it work? Sure, we'll do all the studies and whatever. I came today with a huge thing to say. I've got pages and pages of documentation that I will pass out to you guys afterward regarding the formaldehyde, the levels, what's in it. I brought a box of propylene glycol. Adam, actually, can you pull that up? Do you guys know what's in a vape? Do you know there are 4 ingredients in an electronic cigarette liquid, okay? Ingredient number 1 is nicotine. Nicotine is the bad thing. However, with the nicotine, that is the variable. That's the X factor. If you're a heavy smoker and you start vaping, sure, you might start at a high level of nicotine. The goal is to drop it down to 0. I'm almost at 0. I started at 18. I'm down to 3. Everything that Mitch is pulling out here includes the next 2 ingredients that are in a vape: propylene glycol, vegetable glycerin. Propylene glycol is in at least 40, 50 things in your home. You consume it every day. There's propylene glycol probably in some of your beverages right now. If you bought a drink recently at Dunkin' Donuts, there's propylene glycol in it. If you bought a donut and Entenmann's, anything that Entenmann's makes, that's got propylene glycol. You buy half the stuff that Kraft makes, that's got propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin. These are dedicated as safe for consumption via the federal government. Every product in here, and we can pull, are you done pulling stuff out? All right, I think I've made the point. The very last item that goes into an electronic cigarette, this thing, this big bad thing that helped me quit smoking, food flavoring. Yeah, they're fruity foods. They're I don't know, dessert flavors. Me personally, I vape a donut flavor. Not because I'm targeting kids and trying to say, hey, or try this. I like donuts. That's why I do it. That's why every single one of us here representing my shop hand create all these liquids. Yeah, adults kids like it too, but who here likes flavored creamers in their coffee? It's the same thing. So what I'm saying is to restrict us from selling to our customers who are under 21 but still of legal age everywhere else, when essentially they just buy it online or just walk to the Sheets, which, did you know the Sheets, actually the border of Kent City and Franklin Township goes through the gas pumps? So that also proposes a question. Is it because 70% of their real estate is Franklin Township? Like, is it because the cash registers are on the Franklin Township side versus the other half of their property, which is Kent City? What I'm saying is, okay, 21, we get it, sure. Don't discriminate against us because they can walk across the street and still do it. It does nothing to get it out of their hands. I think the argument that, like, I have a 14-year-old and he knows 18-year-olds, okay, we're passing laws because of that? Like, what is an adult, and what do you want to tell to the 40,000 students at Kent State? Hey, you're an adult, but guess what? You're not. And that's what I think we really need to consider here for such a progressive community. Yeah, other states have raised it to 21. Ohio is coming up. It's going to happen. Fine. What I'm saying is, don't put me out of business and send people to other shops where it's right there. Wait till Ohio does it, because otherwise it makes Kent look bad. Hey, we want you to come to this university, but you know what? Stay out of downtown. Thank you.
Yes, John.
Yeah, I got a question for a gentleman.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm going to say that.
Now, based on all the input this evening from the audience, I have an acquaintance that's 50 years old.
Sure.
He'd been doing vape for about 2 years. He's reduced his cigarette smoking by probably 75%. Now, how do you think he's going to react when I tell him that the polypropylene glycol that's in his soda pop, when it's burned, creates a carcinogen, and that his vapor cigarettes that he chain smokes have 4 times the nicotine as tobacco cigarettes? He's 50, he's not 18, this doesn't affect him.
First off, you would be feeding him misinformation. And there's always going to be a gray area in between. Those studies that they're quoting where there is slight leaks of formaldehyde are burnt at such a high level. It's burnt at 450 degrees Celsius, hotter than any vaporizer on the market. Nobody that vapes wants that burnt taste. As soon as you get that burnt taste, we can all tell you that's when you change your coil and you go back because it tastes bad. That's what they were doing, using electronics to simulate puffing to achieve these levels. In fact, I've got in my batch of paperwork, if you guys would like, I can pass it out for further reading later on. I don't want to bore you guys with all the details, but we've got all the studies here that show the other side of that argument. Congratulations to your friend for dropping it down, what, 75%? What that tells me right there is it's working, right?
Well, it's not working. He's smoking continuously. It's just a different product. But, so I guess I'll tell him everything's okay now.
Yes, Heidi, you have a question?
I'm done.
Okay. Do you do online sales?
We do.
So how are you going to determine whether somebody's a Kent resident or not?
Well, that's going to be really tricky because currently we do have the federally mandated age check verification software. It's called Blue Check. The FDA, okay, we talked about the FDA real quick, but like what you guys don't know is the FDA has been coming at the vapor industry for the last 3.5 years now. And what they have done is there's a set of guidelines and regulations that all the vape shops, manufacturers, and distributors need to follow. And it's set up so that like deadline 1, August 8th, 2016, deadline 2, August 8th, 2017, and then we've had 2 deadlines so far. Our next deadline coming up is November 8th, where we have to file PMTA paperwork disclosing every single ingredient within every single variable within our product. The FDA told us a year ago already that we need the age check verification software. We've done it. As far as it's going to get really tricky, like, okay, Cincinnati, we have to make sure they're 21 now. Columbus, 21 now. And I don't even know about the other states yet. But like the online market, just like when the online question was asked earlier, like, can these kids still get their jewels online? Yeah, they can. Like, so, you know, who's checking that stuff? At least what I can say from a vape shop owner perspective is the FDA has so many things, and like every 6 to 8 months we have to hit another point. And we are complying with every single thing that they're throwing at us because we believe in our product and we believe what we're doing. Yes.
I guess, is there some kind of, I mean, maybe this isn't a question for you, maybe this is more of a legal question. So if now that it's in effect, when he does an online sales, if somebody has a Kent zip code, he has to determine whether they are living inside the city of Kent and their age. Is that correct?
Well, the ordinance prohibits the retail sales in Kent. If we consider the sale as occurring in Kent, he can't sell to 18 to 20, possibly. He couldn't sell to 18 to 21-year-olds anywhere if the sale is supposedly occurring in Kent.
So city regulation trumps federal regulation? Is that correct?
If you're selling in Kent, it does.
Okay.
And if that's how we look at this law, personally, I do. I think that if you're looking at if someone's from Cincinnati, you probably don't need to. You can get your own legal advice, but I think you probably should be more worried about where you're selling from, not who you're selling to, but who's the seller, not the buyer.
Now, are there penalties for us? Because that to me, like, that it's just like waking up one day and finding out that, oh, I am now illegally selling my product to 40% of my customer base. Like, with that knowledge, when this goes into place, is there repercussions? Am I going to be sued for mailing an online order to somebody, say, in Austin, Texas, knowing that they're 20 years old? Like, and if so, is it federal government that's coming after us?
I don't know how we would find that out, Juan, unless...
See, and from a business perspective, there are so many questions because, like, another question, can I sell this? It's a battery. Am I allowed to sell this to somebody under the age of 21? They can go to Walmart. They can buy this.
It's just tobacco. It's not the accessories.
But it's e-cigs, right? Is that correct?
I need the ordinance in front of me.
Okay, so like I said last month when we spoke to you, we implore you to please put somebody in our shop, send them our way so that we can go through the 500 different products that we sell to ensure that we are complying with whatever regulations are set forth on both the city level as well as the federal level. Like, we just want to make sure, just as Mr. Roller said earlier, we want to make sure that we're compliant with the law. And like, whether or not the law is 18 or 21 or 46, like, I want to make sure that what we're doing is right. Because honestly, I believe in what I'm doing, and I don't want to go to jail for somehow doing the wrong thing, even though everything I understood was.
Heidi?
I just want to ask you a question about, so are these guys all your employees?
Yeah,
How many employees do you have?
we have 10 employees.
10 part-timers?
2 full-time?
What FTEs, how many FTEs do you have?
How many what?
Full-time equivalents, like if you...
Full-time?
If you put everybody's hours together, how many?
2.
Two full-timers, but then how many part-timers? 6, 8? 8, okay, plus yourself, you're a full-timer.
Correct.
All right, so given maybe that the question that was just asked,
from Hope and also you're looking, the stakes are pretty high for your business, being in Kent, basically.
Sure.
That's what we're determining tonight, basically.
Sure.
Based on, whether, if we make this, but it becomes less so maybe if everybody does it, because at least the playing field will be level.
Right.
Is that right?
I am not opposed to keeping these out of the hands of middle and high school kids. Like, we do every single thing. You ask anybody that's been to our shop, the first thing we do is card them. That is federally regulated. It's mandatory for us. I can't speak for the other shops, but I know what we do because we need to be hard asses because we want to stay in business. I don't think a defense of, I have a 14-year-old and he knows 18-year-olds is enough to set a law into motion that there's so much more to it than just that. Who here has an older brother or sister that is more than 5 years older than them? Nobody. Okay, I'm the only one. All right. But like, there's ways around it, and kids aren't stupid. Like, if we're going to enforce discrimination against them and prohibit what they can do, Tide Pods? Like, seriously, kids are creative, and they're going to, as soon as you put one thing down, it's like a game of whack-a-mole. It's just going to be something else. The question is it worth it to put a line right down the middle of what all residents see as Kent, whether it be Franklin Township or Kent City, to make one place say, yes, you can do this, and then the next place, no, you can't do that.
Mr. Mayor?
What's the percentage of your clients that are under 21?
I would say somewhere
18.
between 35 and 40%.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why do you feel that's discrimination? It's a law.
Because they walk into our shop and we tell them they cannot be in our shop and they have to go.
If that 18-year-old can go to Giant Eagle and they can't buy me a Crown Royal.
But they go next door to Firefly and they smoke hookah till they're throwing up. Or they go to Acme, or no, not Acme, I'm sorry. They go to the Sheets on 59 and they can buy all the jewels they want. They can buy all the packs of cigarettes they want. Like, they don't have to drive there. They just walk there. That's what I'm saying.
Anyone else from the council? Anyone else from the community? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes. Yes.
My name's Kyle. I work for the Kent Health Department.
Can I have your full name and address, please?
Kyle Kelly. I don't live in Kent, but I've worked for the health department for 6 years. Just a couple things that this gentleman brought up that I wanted to kind of rebuttal. The first of which is that he keeps referencing Sheets. They are in Franklin Township. We can't force them to do anything, but they have voluntarily abided by the D21 laws. He also referenced another vape shop that's near Acme. I believe they're elected to go out of business on their own due to the ordinance. So Tracy left. I was hoping to kind of answer one of her questions earlier. She asked, how is this going to work if it's only done in Kent? Well, it's already working. We've only had it in effect for 6 weeks, and we've already seen 2 places that are on the Franklin Township border that have elected to do the right thing and enforce this rule. A couple other things that he was talking about was that e-cigarettes are used to get off of regular cigarettes. That might be a good idea, but I don't think there's very many 19-year-olds that are using e-cigarettes to get off of regular cigarettes. Studies show that you're 6 times more likely to actually get addicted to regular cigarettes if you use e-cigarettes. We've been working on this for a long time. We've done a lot of polling in the community. Jeff mentioned it. We're at a 76% approval rating in the community, which matches the nationwide support for it, which is at 75%. And like Wendy mentioned, there's a lot of other communities that have already done this. There's 6 states, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Maine, Hawaii, Oregon, and California have already done it. And there's a lot of other communities like Washington, D.C., Chicago, San Antonio, and New York that have already done this. We do feel bad for a business that might lose some of their revenue, but I'm sure that there are vape shops in New York and Chicago and Washington, D.C. that have survived despite putting this ordinance into effect in their communities. and it has been proven to be effective. I didn't mean to speak when you weren't sitting down, Tracy, but I was kind of talking about the question you raised earlier about how effective is this going to be in Kent if surrounding communities don't do it, and studies show that it is effective, both in Needham, Massachusetts, as well as we're seeing it here in Kent. In a very short amount of time, there's at least 2 places on the Franklin Township border that have elected to abide by the Tobacco 21 rule, even though it doesn't require them to do so. So I think you have a big opportunity to kind of see the big picture and try and save people's lives versus trying to help out a couple businesses that do rely on 18 to 21-year-olds to purchase tobacco. So if anybody has questions, we're here.
Mike?
Does Campus Wine Cellar sell cigarettes?
Campus Wine Cellar? Not to my knowledge.
What about the Sunoco down there, two doors down from
Sunoco, the West Side Market.
the Sunoco down
West Side
down on
Roads and-
Past Sheets.
That's roads.
Oh, I
Roads
don't,
and 59.
I don't know.
That's just, that's,
Spectrum.
Yeah,
you
they
may-
sell cigarettes.
You're right.
Okay, I was just
You're
wondering, 'cause
right.
I know you mentioned Sheets and
Well, I only
Acme.
brought up Sheets because of this
Sheets and
gentleman.
Acme,
Yeah.
yeah, they both volunteered to go by this?
I don't know about Acme, but I know Sheets has put it into effect, and there's another vape shop that was near Acme. I don't remember the name, but they have gone out of business. I think I actually read an article from Diane Smith that said that they went out of business
Okay, so
recently.
Sheets is the only one that.
Yeah, and again, this wasn't something I planned to talk about. I'm just
I
trying
know, I
to
was
give.
just curious, because I
Yeah.
know there's other places down there.
Of course there are, and he's right. This isn't going to eliminate vaping for underage kids. This is just one giant step to reduce it. If we have high school kids at a 30% rate that are using e-cigs and we can get that down to 5%, I'm going to be happy. We're never going to get it down to 0%, but I think this is a huge step to take to try and get that down.
Garret?
Thanks for your input. What's being done to get the township to also do this? Anything? Have you guys talked to anybody at the township?
Yeah, I mean, we're in contact with Portage County Health Department, who regulates the rest of the county outside of Kent, and we're encouraging them to do it. Of course, we can't force them to, but we encourage it. Ohio Department of Health actually is encouraging all the communities to do it, by offering little incentives via grants and things like that to get people to take more proactive approaches to restricting tobacco. So, I mean, this isn't something that's just being done by Kent that we thought this up. I mean, we're seeing that it's being successful in other communities. I mean, even Cleveland and Columbus and Akron are more local. So if you don't really care what's happening in New York or Washington, D.C., maybe you do care what's happening in Cleveland, Akron, and Columbus. And they have already put it in place, and it's working. I mean, it's a successful idea. We just need to implement it, and as strong as we can. I mean, I'm not sure about the Firefly exemption. I would love to see that wiped away, but at least I would advise not to add any additional exemptions.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Yes.
Hi, my name is, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name's Adam Okarma. Work at 132B South Water Street, Kent, Ohio. Just going to talk for a second. I'm not going to go into all these details and everything, but I started working at the vape shop when I was in college. It's just a little bit of extra money. I was Jason's first employee. I also managed a restaurant in Beechwood, so it was just kind of my free time. Well, now I've graduated college. I don't work in the restaurant industry anymore, even though I have my degree. I really feel like we help people. Like, I'm the general manager there, and I spend 90% of my time on the floor because I like to talk to the customers. I like to help them. I'm not always just trying to get a couple extra dollars out of them. Like I encourage them to lower their nicotine, and I talk to customers every single day about this. And like this year has been a horrible year for vaping, like because of the Juuls. And I do all of the ordering for the shop, and I refuse to order the Juuls because it's not how vaping was intended. Like, Juul has one nicotine level. It's 50 milligrams of nicotine. The standard nicotine in vaping before this, like the highest was 24, and they've now doubled it You know, we have people come in and they start at nicotine and they have, you know, they have control over the amount of nicotine. Like people might start with a higher nicotine because they're used to the cigarettes. But then, like, I personally encourage people to get off nicotine. I've actually, you know, I've talked, like, customers become our friends. Like, they come in and talk to us, like, not just to come in and get a bottle of juice, but they might just went through a breakup. Like, they trust us. We make their product right in front of them. And then, you know, we talk to them, they trust us. But I just want to say, you know, and I don't know about this other vape shop going out of business. I've never heard anything about that. I can just see them getting 4 times the amount of business now because 3 other vape shops can't sell to those individuals. And I feel like we have a high quality product out there. Yeah.
I do.
Heidi?
Yes. Is this a product that anybody else carries? I mean, is this something that was developed by Jason? I mean, I heard something about that. This is something different and unusual, or?
Well, we don't carry outsourced liquids. We make every single bottle. You come into our shop, we make that bottle right in front of you. As for your friend, like, you might, like, I know everybody hates the flavors, but like, you should encourage them to come see our shop. It doesn't matter the law, but we will. I mean, it's all about finding the right flavor. I've been using the same flavor for 2.5 years. And before that, I used the same flavor for 2 years. You know, once you find something that works for you, and then start lowering yourself off the nicotine, like it works. It really does work. We've had 80, 90-year-old customers come in and smoke their whole lives and quit smoking. Like, I see it. Like, we help people. Like, I just don't want to see. I've worked so hard to be the best in this town, not even in this town, but the best around. And it just killed me to see another shop that just opened up maybe a year ago get all the business. And like, that would be the last place I'd send. Like, I'd want my kids buying the product.
Robin?
Yeah. When they quit smoking, do they ever quit vaping? I mean, when they're moving off of tobacco products, they're...
So we've moved. We originally were above the Puffer Belly, and we were the only vape shop in Kent, probably one of the few Northeast Ohio when we opened. And I've been there every day. I'm there every day. I get to know all my customers. And out of all the customers from when we opened that I see now, I don't see them anymore. They quit, you know.
They even quit coming to your business.
I encourage, I recommend everybody come into our shop and just watch and talk to our customers, because I encourage, like, I look out for people's health. Like, I care about the people. I'm one of them, you know.
But you're one who's still vaping.
We've been here since, 6 o'clock, and I haven't even thought about it. I've been
Well, when
thinking
you
about
leave,
getting
will
up
you
in
think
front of this
about it?
microphone. What's that?
When you leave, will you think about it?
What I think about it? I don't use it in front of my children. I have 2 children of my own, and I don't want them using it.
Why? So, yeah.
Why do I do it? Because I enjoy it. Why do people drink? Because they enjoy it. I go home, if I go home from work, I'm stressed out and I have a beer, I'm not drinking a 12-pack every night. I'm not addicted to the alcohol, but I still enjoy it, sitting down and having a good craft beer.
Well, I was just wondering about that. I mean, you know, we've had some people come in and explain that, and they tell you about the different chemicals involved, and that at a certain level, how they become carcinogenic. And
I think we're getting a little off track here, okay?
Well, I was just wondering.
Yeah, I understand, Mr. Attorney. Thank you. We have someone else who wants to come up. I'm sorry, I have someone else who wants to come up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Vosing. I live 1639 East Main Street, Unit 9. I felt obligated to come up here because I am that unique person you guys keep talking about. I'm 20 years old. I would be directly affected by this, and I'm also a Kent State student. First, I want to say, I know we're supposed to be talking to you. Can I speak to them kind of indirectly. If this is just going to happen anyways, if eventually, federal government or state government is going to eventually implement it so that, 21-year-old, the age is going to be 21, that you are legally allowed to purchase e-cigarettes. I feel like this could be more of an opportunity for you guys. I feel, by saying that your business is going to be impacted, if we were to not go through with the ordinance, then it would only not, it wouldn't affect you for that time frame of, in between when the state, it's just prolonging the inevitable eventually. It's just going to happen eventually. There's an opportunity to get ahead of the business, start advertising to more, to other demographics, other age groups. I really want to shift the conversation towards how we're going to, keep middle schoolers keep them away from these e-cigarettes and juuls. Because what I'm hearing is that this ordinance is 18 to 21-year-olds. It's making it more difficult for the middle schoolers to obtain these e-cigarettes. But what are we doing to kind of explain to them why they shouldn't be getting these e-cigarettes in the first place? I think, coming from my perspective, kids are going to, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cigarettes, they're going to find a way to get a hold of it, whether you increase the age to 21, whether that be the city or whether that be the national government. So what are we doing to make sure that kids are more informed about why e-cigarettes or why juuls can be bad for their health? I think that, coming from my generation, is the biggest thing that keeps a lot of us, that really decrease the amount of people who use cigarettes. When I was in school, health fairs all the time, showing you what a lung looks like when you use cigarettes, that kind of stuff, the visuals to show you why, to show you the impact of nicotine on your body. I really just want to know, step forward after this, after the ordinance is passed or not passed. What are we doing to make sure that the kids at the middle schools nearby, what are we doing to make sure that the superintendent has, less occasions where there are students using tools and vapes? I think this is,
Oh, no, dying.
Again, just to rephrase what I said, I think this is kind of putting a Band-Aid on the issue. It's not really going to solve anything. It's definitely helping. It's not like it's not doing anything. But, long term, what are we doing to, get kids more informed about, the dangers of tools, e-cigarettes, that kind of stuff? And this is an open question. I really do want to know what the step is after this.
Well, Brian, we're not going to be able to respond to that
Not
tonight.
Okay.
But I appreciate the question, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Mrs. Jukes.
I was going to say good evening, but I think it's a good night, maybe. Right? My name is Jackie Peoples-Dukes, and I'm the student assistant. My address is 515 Harris Street in Kent, and I'm the student assistance program coordinator at Kent City Schools, and I work mainly at the high school as needed at the middle school. And I have been needed at the middle school. I do prevention and early intervention, so I work with students. They have a automatic consequence, of course, if they violate the student code of conduct related to tobacco. And we offer at our district intervention, early intervention. So to answer that question, one of the things that, due to the increase that we've noticed at our school, I personally, when I'm working with students, I'm looking at incorporating information about e-cigarettes and juuls and things of that nature into the curriculum, because the increase has spurred that need. Also, I know that our health teachers also have incorporated that. We also, at our high school, we are trying to educate parents and teachers. Last year, many of our teachers did not know what a juul was. Therefore, of course, kids had that privilege of having that little time of ignorance that teachers weren't even aware of what that was. So introducing the staff to that, making them aware of that, also trying to incorporate the state is really great, has really wonderful resources. The web has wonderful resources to educate parents, because just like with computers, sometimes kids are a step ahead. Parents don't even know about these products. So part of it is educating the parents so that they are aware of these. They can have the conversation at home, because of course parents are the best deterrent and the most informed. So again, being unified with the school and the community. So again, this consistent message through multiple channels is what's going to happen here, and we need to educate everyone. But at the school, I work also with the 6th District Compact, which is, we're in a compact educationally with Woodridge, Stowe, Hudson, Cuyahoga Falls, other schools. So we are also looking at intervention. We have a intervention for alcohol and other drugs that we offer for our students, and we are currently reviewing incorporating a tobacco class. So also some of our community agencies like Town Hall 2, they are also offering classes. We can refer parents there, students there. So everyone's trying to get on board. It's a little bit new. It's moving very fast is the challenge. So again, there are things that are happening, interventions that are going on, and we're working as a community, school community, hopefully in conjunction with our community as well here at large. So I don't want to take up very much time, but we are trying to be progressive and proactive in doing some things and reactive, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
We have one more. Last one. We've heard about everything.
No, I was just saying good night.
We haven't heard everything.
I was going to say good night to Jackie.
Oh, do we have one over here? Oh.
Chris Todd, 1108 South Water Street, Kent. I'm 52 years old. When I was in high school, I was 18 and I could drink beer. And I was in 1985. And what the state did is they grandfathered people in as they moved the age up to 21. And I think maybe we should do that with this.
Yeah, I was thinking.
I think maybe it should be 18 this year, 19 next year, 20 the year after that, and then when everybody else catches up with the Franklin Townships or Canton or Youngstown or everywhere else, then it would be 21 by then for everyone. That way it's a slow change. People accept that, because I think right now a lot of the college kids that are in that 18 to 20 age group, if you have been smoking cigarettes for 2 years and you're 20 years old, you cannot buy cigarettes now in the city of Kent. And I don't think that's right. I think it should be grandfathered in and do it slow so we can basically get to our goal of 21, but also not interfere so much that businesses have to close, that people will have to get laid off, that, you know, everything will work its course out. And I think maybe that's something that you should consider.
Thank you. Yes. We got one more here.
That's what I liked about your 19, because I'm actually looking at it.
Hello, my name is Alexander Ross. I live at 792 Kennebec Avenue. I'm not an employee of Jason's. In fact, he didn't even ask me to be here, but I came out of my own accord. I'm here because I am proof. At the age of 14, I had my first cigarette, and I firmly regret it. I smoked regularly by the age of 17, and in 2014, when I was 18 years old, I walked into Jason's shop for the first time. I left that shop with a flavor that was caramel coffee, if I remember it correctly. And on that day, in 2014, 4 years ago, that was the last time that I had a cigarette. So I am here because I'm proof, because I know that vaping has saved my life, that Jason's shop has saved my life. And I'm here to ask you firmly, I get that we all want to save people, that we want to do the right thing, and I regret smoking cigarettes as a kid, and I don't want anyone else to do it. And I know that it's a bad idea, and I firmly commend the Kent City School Districts for doing what they can to make sure that kids are educated. But you have to ask yourself, in rolling out these feel-good measures that ultimately do nothing because they're just going to go to the next door city, do you want to kill his business, this business that saved my life? Now, they're going to come out here with all of these scary sounding names and chemicals and terrible things that are in these vapor products. But the fact of the matter is this. According to study after study that's come out of the National Institute of Health by the UK, vaping is safer than cigarettes, period, plain and simple. I'm not saying it's safe, it's better than cigarettes. So I'm thankful for that, and I know that I feel that every day of my life. I'm not going to attempt to give you these facts and numbers as some other people have done, and I hope that you can sense the level of for lack of a more humane term, crap that they're bringing when they come up here and say, well, studies have shown, and then proceed to cite nothing. They're telling you what they want you to hear, and I hope you're not believing it. Vaping has saved my life. Don't kill his business in the process.
Thank you. I don't see any more audience participation, so back to council. John?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I make a motion that we continue to adopt the Tobacco 21 legislation as written.
Second.
Second. Any comments, John?
Yeah, you know, there's been enough evidence presented
Need the motion.
that both items are bad for you. And now I learned that, you know, that vanilla in the stove can even kill you. You know, if we can save a few people or delay people from starting smoking by our actions, I think it's, you know, the route to go. And I guess, you know, if you're a partial casualty in this, maybe if you work a little harder, and you're just going to have to rely on the people 21 and over, you know, just like they did when they outlawed 3-2 beer in Ohio. The bars didn't close, you know, they just lost a few customers for a while.
Can I have a clarification for a moment on this, on your motion? The law already exists, correct?
The written.
Right,
tobacco
so
21.
really, and I need our law director to help me on this. The law already exists, so the motion to
Continue.
Well, I think that since you can't make a motion in the negative, which
Correct.
if he was allowed to do that, he would say, I make a motion that we not change the current ordinance. I think that maybe he was just inartful and that's in the nicest sense of the word. It's getting late.
I'm sitting here thinking there was something not quite right there.
A motion would be a moot point since it's already.
Yeah.
Yeah, motion would be a moot point,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I would like to make a motion,
Well, wait, Tracy, let's stop for a second. We have that motion, so that motion
it's
is
moot.
voided, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I would like to make a motion for the current ordinance, though, to be implemented, as the gentleman said, that makes a lot of sense to me, where for this year, 18-year-olds, and next year, up it to 19, next year, up it to 20, and then get it to 21. It seems like rolling it in gradually would be a more prudent thing to do, and you can add that on to that. You second it? You're not going to second
There's
it?
a motion on the floor.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
There's a second?
Yeah,
I
Can I make an amendment to the amendment?
Yeah.
No,
Not yet.
No.
you second her motion? Now you want to amend it?
I can't do that then.
I'm not, I have to ask the professional down
You
here.
can't do that, you have to vote on this motion. and then-
Tracy, do you have any other comments? You made the motion.
No, I just think that sounds like a very logical, reasonable thing to do, to roll it out slowly. I think it'd be less of a shock. And that's how we did alcohol, which was very addictive also.
Heidi, you were the second.
Well, yes, I did second that. I kind of wanted to make an exception for vapes, but because,
So this is going to fail, so we can do it next time.
okay,
You have to speak to the motion.
all right. As heinous as I believe tobacco is, and also addiction of nicotine, I do question whether making it so broad and so all at once is the best way to do it.
Any other comments on the motion? John?
Yeah, I'm not going to support it because I think that would just totally confuse people, over a period of time. And I mean, if you're going to do it, you do it.
Any other comments on the motion? Seeing no other comments, all those in favor of supporting that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion fails. Yes, John?
Okay, I want to try this again.
You don't have to do anything, and it
Well,
stays
yeah,
the
you don't have to
same.
do anything, John.
It'll stay the same if you don't do
Just-
anything.
You don't want to,
Oh, if I, okay.
It's already a law.
All right. Then why are we here? Okay.
I suggest the people next to you.
Yes.
No.
I would like to make a motion to create a vapes exception, to grandfather the ban in gradually for this particular product, and I'll say why in a moment.
Second.
The reason why is I think it's very easy to get anyways. You can get it online. And I do think that this is a college town. We expect people to be adults at age 18, and I do know a lot of people that are adults that do use this product socially, and therefore, I think it's people meet with a very hard reckoning when they go and try to purchase something, and they say, no, sorry, you can't because you're 18. Before it was, I had to be 21. I think that one of the biggest concerns I have is that this business is a good business, and they do provide a service. And I think they're trying very hard to work within the law, and they see the writing on the wall too. I like the gradual approach that one of our speakers brought up. I think it might be the best way to go about doing that with this particular product, and that's. I don't know if I can make it any more narrow than.
you're not speaking to your
that.
own motion, Heidi. You've moved off.
No, sir, our motion was to gradually increase the age for vapes from 18 every
Well,
year.
that's not how I heard that motion.
Yeah, that's what
To
it
make
is.
an exception, you say.
Yeah.
For vapes. The vapes would be the exception.
They would increase every year.
Okay. Tracy, you seconded it, right?
Yeah, I agree.
John?
Well, again, I'm going to vote against the motion. I think what we have is pretty straightforward. And then when I see a person that sells that product that says he won't use it in front of his children, it tells me that deep down inside, he doesn't believe it's a good thing either.
Anyone else? You can't, you're out of order. Anything else? Anyone else? Have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay. Well, hearing no other motions, this committee is closed.
Streets and sidewalks,
Oh,
Mr.
yeah,
Sidoti.
Oh, jeez.
Not the one.
Can we
I
take a,
guess I gotta
can we
handle
have
this.
You
All right,
just
we
make a
have,
motion to accept the administration's suggestion
Yep.
here and get it over with.
We have authorizing parking ordinance revisions.
Yeah, this is purely procedural. The chief has gone through with Bridget and her department to match the signs on the street with what's written in the actual code. So we've matched them now, because over time, things have fallen out of sequence or alignment. So if you want more details, we certainly can offer, but I honestly, this is pretty much just a housekeeping, I think is what we called it.
So is someone speaking other than?
I mean, the chief's here, Bridget's here,
Anything, can we
but
do you just need us a motion to?
to allow us to match, she's come through the list of what needed to be updated to match what's on the street and what's in our code.
I have a question, Dave.
Go ahead, John, you have a question?
Yeah, who's going to answer it? Is
I thought I was in charge. but that's
Maybe
okay.
Bridget would answer, I mean, or...
No, I'm not.
Ask the question, John.
Ask the question.
The question is, do all these adjustments to match the conditions that we have now, is that 10 and 10 space overnight parking included in that somewhere? No.
That's coming next month.
That's
This just
next month.
included the changes today because we have to establish a fee, and that's in another section. So that'll be coming as a housekeeping issue next month.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
The audience. Go to the audience, make a motion.
Yeah, anyone
Move
in
to
the
authorize.
audience?
Move to authorize
Second. Does it need an emergency?
with emergency?
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Any other questions? Motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Okay. then that's-
We're not
I,
done.
I would move for an executive session.
For what? For me.
You can go home,
Wait a
Dave.
minute, Ronald.
What? I'm out of here.
Yes, you are.
I would move for an executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee. Okay. Official, licensee, or regulated individual, unless the public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual requests a public hearing.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Kuhar,
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Shaffer. Ms. Shaffer, where's, okay, we'll skip her. Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Mr. Turner,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach, Mr. DeLeone, and Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Do we have 5 votes? We don't need
Yes.
Mr. Shaffer.
Right, we don't need her, she went, yeah, okay, I got a yes. Okay, yes, we had more than
All right.
5 anyway.
We give you 5 minutes to clear the room. Mike, this is yours.
Yeah, I believe.
Need the law director, but not Dave.